anything on the agenda after we call the meeting to order. I would like to call the regular meeting of the Cedar Springs City Council to order for Thursday, January 12th, 2023 at 7:04 p.m. Please join us, rise and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God.
Moved over right to right.
Ms. Atchison, I'm gonna call the roll.
Here.
Mr. Gross.
Here.
Ms. Hamel. Present. Ms. Nixon.
Here.
Ms. Powell.
Here.
Ms. Race.
Here.
And Mayor Conley is here. I am going to make one shift to the agenda. Mr. Green, 48 hours ago, asked to be added to our agenda. And we don't normally do that, as you know, but we will, he is a supervisor for Algoma Township, so we will move him to the public comment portion of our agenda, and we will let him speak first so that we can hear what it is he has to say. I think everyone has a copy of the letter, hopefully, that was sent out 48 hours ago with a proposal. So public comment, the council welcomes and encourages the public to speak during the public hearing portions of the agenda. However, council policy is to hear the public comment, not to act on the public comment at this time. Concerns brought before the council during the public comment portion of the agenda will be referred to the city manager for action. If after communicating with the city manager, no resolution is reached, the concern will be elevated to the mayor and eventually to the council for action. Those citizens wishing to speak on agenda or non-agenda items will be allowed a maximum of 4 minutes to address their concerns. This is the only time during the council meeting that citizens are allowed to address the council. If you would like a direct response, please state your name and address for the record.
Madam Mayor, just as a point of order before Mr. Green starts, we do have representatives from the KDL library system here as well today.
Yes, but we have them on our agenda.
So the agenda does have an item related to KDL, but I didn't specifically put time on there for them to speak. I didn't.
Oh, I assumed
Oh.
they would be speaking to
Sure.
that.
So it's obviously the mayor's prerogative. I just wanted to point that out because I didn't know if you want to do it during public hearing or if you wanted to do it at that time.
Mr. Werner, do you have a preference?
Whatever works best for you.
Okay, because we do have KDL, a discussion about KDL on our agenda that was planned to be on our agenda. So if you're able to speak to that, that would be lovely. All right, Mr. Green, I'm not going to hold you to 4 minutes of time.
Okay, I'll be fairly brief anyway. First of all, thank you very much for being accommodating. It's very kind of you. So 30 years ago, when I was 22, this is where I got my start, right here. This is where I started my public service. I did an internship for Frank Walsh, who was the city manager back then. Really brilliant guy, and I got a taste of it back then. So this all came about. We did a strategic planning in Algoma Township, and the whole main theme was preparing for the future. So we have been looking at our services, looking at what things we want to do in the near future and further out. And police and fire were really at the top of the list. And yet we're trying to balance that with the rising costs and taxes. And so trying to find a creative way to provide all those services together. So that's how this came about. So we started researching like what are possible partnerships we could have. And that's why we're here today. So we believe that we could do a 0.4 mil like Solon Township. We're definitely open to negotiations. And everything I'm saying today, it's not been approved by our board as well, but it's such a catch-22 because I've got to be able to say, hey, there's some interest or as well before I try to get approval as well. But we are going to be talking about it more officially this month as well. So that would bring in $228,000 because our tax base is quite a bit higher. And I believe your library brings in about 250 grand. I believe Solon pays about 89-ish. Cedar, I think you pay around 118, 119. So we, in a sense, because of our tax base, would be able to contribute almost the same as both you and Solon together. So
How many people do you have, Mr. Green?
our population is just about 13,000. So
We don't have that many.
no, right. So we're very unique in the sense that we have about a third of our residents are Cedar Springs residents, in the sense that that's the school district. And they primarily use the libraries up here. Then a third of our township is Sparta Township. And a third of our township is the city of Rockford. Just to kind of give you some bearings. And so at one time, we had 4 of our communities looking at possibly doing just a little bit lower cost option. That didn't happen. We're, just to be really clear, we're not unhappy with any of the services that KDL provides. There's no arguing, they provide top-notch service. So kudos to Lance for running a really good library. So that's not what this is about at all. We're just trying to find ways and be creative with our fellow communities. So one of the partnerships that we are working on is to try to do joint police services with Cortland, for example.
Might recommend the county sheriffs.
Yes, yeah, through the
That is
county.
what we do.
Yes, through the
With
county
much
sheriff,
less money.
actually. Yeah, absolutely. So through the county sheriff, we're looking at partnering with Cortland to do joint services. So it's not just Cedar Springs we're looking at other neighboring communities to try to make the cost savings and make sense. So I think part of the challenging part is the KDL is going for renewal millage. Their millage is up, and Lance can obviously expound on the exact details. But in a gist, they'll probably go for a longer term millage. I believe they're going to reduce it to 1.1 mil, which is good. But it's for 10 years. So that's why it's such a crunch for us. If we really want to do this and partner with one of the surrounding communities, we have to have something on the ballot by May to let our residents decide if that's what they want to do or not. So that's, I think, part of the challenge. But legally, we don't have to have a commitment in place to do that. We just have to have some interest, ideally. So all we're asking is that you would meet with us and explore the option. That's really what I'm asking right now.
So I went over your letter in quite a bit of detail and did some looking up of numbers, and you came and asked us to join the Cedar Springs Library and like back in October, November. And we responded with 6 items in a letter, 5 of which were completely non-negotiable. 1 was semi-negotiable. And this proposal meets exactly none of them. And you cannot offer, well, first off, you cannot offer the allocated aid and penal fines that you claim you can in your letter unless KDL allows you to leave. And you haven't provided to us any indication that you've spoken with KDL regarding this. Without that assurance of a supported separation, you and your participation in cooperative with Lakeland is a jeopardy, and you put our participation at Lakeland in jeopardy. I spoke with our library director who said part of library cooperatives is the cooperative piece. We don't bid underneath each other. You also presented a lot of numbers on this page, but not only are you not matching our 1.22 millage that would be equitable, and equity is really important in libraries, it's important in schools, that we require your 13,000 people. You would be paying actually less dollars per person than my citizens. My citizens are paying roughly $33 and some change per person right now. And it's not enough, that $33 per person. So we pad that with general fund dollars to cover things like snow removal and the building and additional programming for Red Flannel. So we're up in the neighborhood of like $35 to $37. You're offering at your top end 20. That's not even close. And you want 13,000 people that I don't have a parking lot for. So next, the library board seats the ability to, you want 2 library board seats and the ability to determine content. And that's, again, not negotiable.
We did not say that. And so just for clarification, if I'm allowed to speak, I don't want to.
Yeah.
For clarification, back in October, November, I started conversations with the city manager. We work on a lot of different issues. We have a lot of different issues that cross the borders. I just was asking to possibly meet with you to talk about these things. But at that time, it must have got misconstrued. We didn't have an offer on the table. I didn't even know what would be.
Right,
fair or
so we made an
proper.
offer to you. You said you would be interested. Mike and I, and
So I had,
talked to Cammy and said, what would be the minimum that has to happen? And we put up 6 points that we said to you in a letter.
so I talked to our attorney and it looked like, and he reviewed it as well. It looked like we could meet most of those,
Okay, but
Oh.
your math, 1.22.
right, which is
That's number one.
$228,000.
No, it's not. 1.22 mils is not 228,000.
No, 0.4 mils is 220.
Okay, no, we're not doing 0.4, 1.22.
I hear
I
that.
put that at the top. Okay, let me explain equity to you. Okay, the way that libraries and schools work as a teacher is that everybody pays the same millage, not the same
What
dollars.
if
You
you pay
don't,
0.4?
please don't interrupt me. We don't pay 0.4. We
Okay.
pay 1.22.
Maybe there's enough more revenue for you to do that.
There isn't enough revenue. Our 1.22 isn't enough. We're padding it with general fund dollars.
Well, and I was hoping to make this a win-win situation.
Okay,
so
You
we-
have 13,000 people.
And not all of them use the library.
Don't do that. No.
Right now,
No,
right now.
no,
the Gulf
No,
Library-
stop. 13,000 people that would need library services. We're not going to decide that some of them get to use the library and some of them don't. That's not a thing. Okay? We don't decide that some of the kids can go to school and some of them can't. So schools, we pay a set millage. Whether your house is worth $50,000 or whether it's worth $50 million, you pay a millage and the kids go to school. Libraries, your house is worth what it's worth. You pay 1.22 mils. If your house is worth more, you pay more. And everybody uses the library. We call that equitable. It's about social justice. It's about fairness. And yes, we have someone paying 0.4. They're paying $13 per person compared to our 37. No, that's not equitable either. And you know what? I'm not okay with it. And we put them on notice. So if you think that you're going to piggyback on that, that's not going to happen.
Well, we knew that like everybody, you could use the money to help. We thought this would be a win-win situation to do that. And I think there would be enough money because our tax base is higher.
Okay, you're asking to pay less per person.
And hopefully you would have to pay less as well.
No, we can't. Our
We
33
don't
isn't
know that
enough.
unless we explore it together.
Okay, it costs a certain amount of money per person
Well,
to provide
and I would
services.
love to work with you to see if that we could make that happen or not.
The,
And if
the
we
number
can't-
that you need for people to get library services, we're at the edge of. It's really more like 50 or 60 per person. And the way you make it fly, that's like saying, well, we're gonna just cut all of your money per student by $1,000. And now it's okay because we bring in 10,000 more students. No. Look,
I know you.
I care deeply about libraries. I spent 8 years on the library board. I'm a teacher who uses book club to support reading. I started the Friends of the Library to build the library that we have. It took me 17 years. Okay. Libraries are something I'm deeply, deeply committed to. I checked out over 100 books from this library this last year. I donate to this library all of the time. I have a fiduciary responsibility to not provide ongoing welfare to other townships that want to come in and use our services for less money than my people are paying. You have an enormous tax base. Your people are far more wealthy. There is no reason that you shouldn't be able to pay the same millage we are. No reason. And you're not even offering the same dollar amount. $20 compared to our 37 is not in the ballpark. And telling me, well, all of our 13,000 people won't use the library is ridiculous. And I don't have a parking lot for them.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I may. The gentleman was going to present what he has proposed here. I think it would be fair enough to say right now that what is being proposed here is not what we would be looking at if we were
Correct.
to look at it. I think we've gotten into a debate and a deliverance that doesn't need to be discussed now because
Fair enough.
it was only a presentation. Okay, I would like to see Mr. Green finish presenting what he was presenting, and then we'll go on from there. Okay?
You have anything else?
So we have an option to look at other communities as well. We would prefer to work with you. And I would love to be able to sit down with several of your board members and the librarian and see if we can make this happen. And I believe we could maybe get your millage down to 0.4 mil.
We're not dropping our millage.
Again, it's a discussion.
So at least I'd like to explore it. And I do appreciate you.
I'm not
Yeah,
interested in exploring a 0.4 millage. Our citizens have voted in more than that in like 1936.
It used to be 0.88.
Okay, if I may.
If you don't have anything else, other than if anyone has a question.
So what I gleaned from this letter, is that no one has none of your voters or your board, if I understand correctly, has authorized you to enter into this negotiation.
We are voting on it later this month.
Okay.
And it's our job to explore, how can I present anything without talking to people and figuring stuff out? And it's very clear with that in the letter and
Okay,
Yeah.
so, for my one vote of 7, I don't think we're going to be able to save you on villages. If you wanted to join, even though all 13,000 certainly would not come to the library at once, we would therefore need to provide services to a portion of them, which is additional use, which needs additional resources.
sure. I understand that and we would work through it to make sure that we could provide the same level of service you're providing now, if not better. It's just that 1.22 mils, just for us to give you an idea, that's like $660,000.
Mhm.
So,
For that amount of people.
correct.
I would say for my,
And at that point, the reason we're doing this is not because their service is not great. Their service is great. They do a really good job. It's not that, it's not personal. It's just trying to be frugal with our dollars so we can look at other services as well. Because it's hard. It's hard to try to do everything as you
Yeah,
guys
We're
know.
not doing it for that amount of money either.
and
I
We're bleeding
hear
money.
that, Pam.
I think that if I understand your intent in coming here is you're trying to gauge interest.
Yes.
So for me, it is a no, thank you, sir.
Anyone else?
I would like to say that thank you for coming and exploring the option. Definitely, I don't know if the negotiation has to stop. I just know that it's as what you're negotiating right now is not an option. But I don't think, like Jerry said, we need to get into a debate about it. You're here with a plan. Okay, and I want you to think that, none of us want to hear your plan. We do. Okay, but it has to be beneficial to both places. It has to be beneficial to our library, it has to be beneficial to you. I don't see that it's beneficial right now for our library.
Thoughts, Rose?
1.22 is bottom dollar as far
Yeah.
as I'm concerned.
We're actually paying less than KDL. Right now. At 1.22, and it's really not enough.
We have an enormous building to support.
And part of the way we're able to float this right now is the community building development team dropped a big chunk of money into the bank when we opened the building and said you can spend off of this until you can get your funding stream where it needs to be. Because 1.22 really isn't even sufficient, at least on our economy of scale, which is why we're exploring joining KDL. Because at that point, we're almost there. And if they can fold us into their economies of scale, we can start to make it fly. But what we're doing right now, even for us, is not sustainable. And to try to bring someone else on at half of what we're paying, I don't know how we make that math work. But yeah, I'm with you, Rose. Anybody else over here?
Numbers talk. I mean, we need the money. If you're gonna bring that many people here.
Ashley? I agree with that.
I think, if I may, I think one of the key factors in it, Mr. Green, is the idea that the numbers of persons. You've already indicated that you have 3 different governmental entities as far as schools that you are involved with. Is it likely, and this is one of the things that would have to be part of the discussion, is it likely that all of those persons are going to want to come to Cedar Springs? What type of kickback are you going to get from your citizenry as to whether they're going to be in on this also? I'm certain there's going to be a certain amount of kickback that you're going to suggest they no longer be part of the KDL, but then you become part of the Cedar Springs one, which is much further away from them. And that's some of the things that would have to be looked at also.
I think quite a few already do use your library because of the joint services.
I'm certain they do up here on this end, and we welcome them.
The services are limited because we're not part of
But
KDL.
it's
Right.
it's something that would have to be looked at also and discussed and try to figure out. I don't know if there's such thing as a breakdown of half of the township. I don't know. These are all things that would have to be determined in advance to see how this would work. It may be decided that you want to come with us, and if we, for some reason, decide to go to KDL, then you're right back where you're at now, and isn't going to work that way. So, like they say, there's some limbo here to begin with.
We have to be pretty decisive because if we were to, and you know, we have not voted on that, to work out with somebody else, we would have to ask our residents if they wanted to do that. So it was still, at the end of the day, it would be the residents' choice, because we would put a ballot proposal saying this is what we would do at this millage rate. And
They have to vote to leave KDL.
yes, correct. And so we have to do that because they're going for a renewal millage, I think a 10-year, I'm not sure. So we would have to do this by May anyway, and then and obviously you have to do it a couple of months before. So that's part of it too. You know, I didn't have a chance to have as many conversations as I wish I would have, but you know, it's a short time frame. So, but I appreciate you having it as an agenda item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Public comment?
I'm Roberta Sherrato. I do not live in Cedar Springs. I do live in Algoma Township now for the past 28 years. Before that, I lived for 18 years in Rockford. And before that, I graduated from Cedar Springs High School.
Or Red Hawks?
And before that, and for the first 18 years of my life, I lived in Solon Township. So I may have a rather broad view of what's going on right now. Cedar Springs Library, the old one, which was behind the community building, was where I went every Saturday. My folks made sure that we went there because they wanted us to be as educated as possible, and they wanted us to read as much as possible. That ended up resulting in me having a nice career in market research and my brother becoming a mathematics professor at Clark University for 36 years. We're both retired now. But we got a good education here in Cedar Springs because the people in Cedar Springs valued it. They valued that the school would be supported. They valued that the library would be supported, and kudos for you for the whole new building. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
However, I live closer to Sparta Library and then to Cedar and then to the Rockford Library. But I spend more time at the Rockford Library because it is connected to KDL. The number of services, the number of things that I can get there is simply a whole lot more. And I have never grudged paying the millage that we pay in Algoma Township for KDL. It's worth it. And in my humble personal opinion, it would be worth for Cedar Springs as well. Now, some of the folks who come to Cedar Springs from the northern part of Algoma Township come here because it is closer. And they do have more connections to Cedar Springs schools than they do to Sparta or to Rockford. I think that would probably increase. I suspect, although I didn't look it up, that if you look at the cost of houses here and the cost of houses in places where KDL is the library, the property values go up. Your home will be worth more with KDL than it will here, as it is now, even if you've got a great library. And I'm not saying you don't, because I think you do. There are a couple of things that haven't been brought up yet that I think should be. There were several meetings before with Canon Cortland and the city of Rockford and Algoma Township. And at that point, Mr. Green signed a memorandum of understanding. That's a
I
contract.
actually have a copy.
Okay. To support the expansion of the Krause Library in Rockford. And at that time, there was a push to pull one or more of the townships away from the Krause Library. And the pushback from that was rather strong. And I would like to point out that at the end of that, during that signing and after he signed, Mr. Green stated, "We are pleased to join our neighbors in KDL to work collaboratively on the expansion of the Krause Memorial Library." I had no idea what was going on until I talked to a few folks in Sparta, where apparently Mr. Green has also made some inroads attempting to connect with their independent library. And then I talked to people who I knew here in Cedar and people in Rockford. And frankly, as a resident of Algoma Township, when I learned Mr. Green was going to break the MOU with KDL and other municipalities, I was appalled. KDL provides such great services that I couldn't believe it. His behavior is also disappointing on a number of levels. He's effectively making it clear he cannot be trusted to stick to contracts that he signed in good faith. He isn't keeping his word with KDL or with the voters of Algoma Township. And I would say that regardless of what political party, whether he's a man, a woman, anyone else, anyone who breaks this kind of contract is not trustworthy. The other thing is that he hasn't told voters he's even thinking about this. Nobody. There's nothing public about this. Nothing public about his thoughts or his board's thoughts, although the only mention I saw at a board was the two board members said they wanted to explore something. But that's still not any kind of a public mention that he wants to pull Algoma Township out of KDL. KDL has indicated that it will ask for lower tax millages, 1.1 versus 1.2 or whatever it is now. And I think that's a good move. That it will be for 10 years is also a good move. And that they plan, one of the things that I especially like about KDL is they plan for the future. They planned years ago to have digital books. This year, and I think in a recent issue of the press, KDL lent out over 1 million digital books. Yep. And that's a benefit for a resident anywhere who's stuck at home, perhaps because of children or physical conditions, or you're old, me. All of those things make KDL a good solution. And as an Algoma resident who
I'm
probably,
I'm letting you go. You're past your 4 minutes, but I'm letting you go because we have KDL on our
okay,
thing later today.
and I'm gonna be leaving, this is, I have one more little statement, and I'll walk away. As an Algoma resident, I would like to encourage the Cedar Springs Library and the city to join and support KDL. Right now, many of us live in northern Algoma Township and are closer to Cedar than Rockford. That would be a win, win, win for Algoma Township residents, because we wouldn't have to drive so far, and we would all continue to have access to KDL assets. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Elizabeth Johnson and I serve as a trustee on the board for Algoma. And frankly, I mean, I'm a little perplexed. I don't understand. We're literally trying to give you money that would nearly double your budget for the library. And we're getting so much pushback and opposition. It's absurd to me. To me, this seemed like a win-win-win to go into a contract with you guys. Not only would we be doubling your, I mean, for one, we would be nearly doubling your budget. I sat in on a library board meeting and their budget was so tight. They were considering dropping late fees like KDL does, but they couldn't do it because it made 1% of their budget and they needed that. And I was just thinking, you know what? I love the Cedar Springs Library and I love the new building. And yes, it's large and I would love to help fund this library that you could say is struggling, would you not?
It is.
So I'm
Can
sorry,
I ask
excuse
you-
me, this is
can I
public
ask you a
comment,
question?
ma'am. This is public comment,
It is.
please. Thank you. I need to remind this board that you serve the public. It's not the other way around. Okay, thank you. Also, there's the argument that you're not going to be able to handle our load. Listen, I can't get numbers from KDL as to how many people in Algoma, how many Algoma residents have a KDL card. I just want to know how many actually own a card. They won't give me that information, so that's a mystery and a half. But anyway, I would like to have that information so that we could actually tell you how many people use a library. Now, I love the Cedar Springs Library. I use that one. I might even be closer to Rockford, but I prefer the Cedar Springs Library, and I always have. I go down to the Rockford Library and they don't have any more services more than I can get at Cedar Springs. We estimate that, I mean, because we don't have numbers to go by, but if we could estimate perhaps 10% of our residents actually have a library card. And we already know that a portion of them use your library and a portion of them use Sparta. So the fact that the thought that people are going to be busting down your door wanting library services from Algoma is absurd. We know that you can handle the workload. And we even had one of your members say that it's an enormous building you need to support. We're literally trying to support a struggling library and we're getting so much pushback. Now, listen, you're like, well, why do you want to get out of KDL? It's nothing about KDL. We're just trying to get more bang for our residents' bucks, right? But KDL is our largest millage by far. It's more than the fire. It's more than to run the township. If we drop KDL, we can get more bang for our buck and we can get
You have 1 minute.
look, we can get lower police, we can get less police patrol, or we can get lower, anyway, regardless. Another thing I want to say is we don't need KDL's permission to leave. They serve us, the residents, and we represent the residents. That is a misnomer. Also, the fact that Kevin, there was this comment that Mr. Green has not made anything public comment. By the way, our meetings are always public and we haven't had a vote yet. We haven't even had a discussion about it yet, which is always during open meetings. There's nothing shady or behind the doors. We're doing this out in the open. Right
Time to
here.
talk. I will give you 30 seconds.
Okay,
to
and
conclude.
this is going to strengthen the bond that we have always had with Cedar Springs. I don't understand why there's so much pushback against actually giving you money. If you have, if you want to talk to me more about it, my name is Elizabeth Johnson. I sit on the board and my phone number is 616-302-7650. Thank you.
Anyone else? Hi, Kimmy.
Hi, Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Glad to see that I'm not alone tonight at this meeting. I'm glad to be with you. I am not here to speak on anything that's been spoken about
You
already
come
this
to
evening.
speak to us always
I come
about
to
the
s-
wonderful things. of
Yes,
life.
and I'm going to do that again this evening. I'm going to speak to you about the wonderful things that happened at your library last month and a few things that'll be happening at your library this month. So in December, for children 0 to 5, we had 310 total attendance at story time. We also provide some what's called passive programming in the library. And we had 124 participants in our I Spy. We had 203 letters written to Santa, and the Harvest of Hope Foundation actually volunteered, since the Post is no longer available, to write letters back.
Oh.
They covered the postage. The library wrote the letters back, but they covered the postage to 27 children that requested that. So for family programming, we had our one of the biggest events we do of the year, next to end of summer celebration, the holiday open house, and we had 250 people attend. At the Mingle with Chris Kringle, we had 34 attend. For adult programming, we had 1 person come in for technology tutoring. We had 8 attend our writers group, 4 attended book club, 27 blood donors. We had 55 attend our fabric art, and 142 came to the enhanced fitness program. So some things that are happening this month, we are having our first ever health fair. That will be the 26th of January on a Thursday evening. So there will be a special music and movement story time. So please come out to the health fair. I actually do have a guest with me tonight. Her name is Kate. She is from Early Bird Books. She represents the Dolly Parton Imagination Library,
How wonderful.
which the Cedar Springs Public Library is in full support of. I'm going to let Kate tell you what Dolly Parton does, but basically they provide books mailed to children's homes. So why would a public librarian support and not say, well, you can just come to the library? There are certain residents, children whose parents will never bring them to a library. Dolly Parton can go places we cannot go. That is why the library supports that. I know of children that live in this area that will never come to the library because they can't drive because they're children. But the books can come to them through this organization. So it's going to take some minutes.
Hello, thank you. As I only have 4 minutes, I'm going to skip my rendition of Dolly Parton's
You
95.
may have some extended time to talk about how, but you don't need to sing. We're okay.
All right.
You tell us your name.
Yes, of course. Hello, my name is Kate Purvis. I operate Early Bird Books, which is dedicated to creating access to Dolly Parton's Imagination Library in Kent County. And today I'd like to share with you the efforts we're taking to bring this wonderful program to Cedar Springs. If you're unfamiliar with the program, Dolly Parton's Imagination Library selects, sources, and mails 1 book each month to enrolled children under the age of 5, free of cost to the families. This only happens with partnerships with local affiliates like mine, Early Bird Books, who promotes the program locally, registers children, and pays for the wholesale cost of the books. Currently, that cost averages $2.50 per book through the Imagination Library. Research has shown that children enrolled in the Imagination Library experience more home reading time with their caregivers. They show a significant increase in kindergarten readiness and demonstrate higher 3rd grade reading proficiency. 2022, what was that?
My heart.
Oh, yes. 2022 was our first year of operation as an affiliate with the Imagination Library, where we served in Rockford and Belmont area children with the support of Rockford Public Schools. As of December last year, we had delivered 6,561 books to over 1,000 children, and we continue to gain new children in our program daily. We would like to, in 2023, expand this program to Cedar Springs. There are about 1,000 eligible children for the program in Cedar Springs, and more than 200 of them are already pre-registered for this program to receive books from the Imagination Library. This shows to us a great desire in this community to have this program made available. Unfortunately, this will not happen until we reach our funding goals. We have made progress, though. Early Bird Books has already received support and partnerships from the Cedar Springs Public Library, the Cedar Springs Rotary Club, and the Cedar Springs Women's Club, all of whom firmly back the mission of Dolly Parton's Imagination Library. At this stage, I want to make the City Council aware that Early Bird Books is seeking individuals and community partners in Cedar Springs to help us connect to the community and support our cause. If
You
you're-
are also on YouTube right now?
and everybody out there on the internet. If you're interested in learning more, I will be available after the meeting and to give you my contact information and more information on the program, or you can visit us at earlybirdbooks.org. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Take your time, Mr. Loss. I've told you multiple times, we don't count your time walking. If you need some extended time, it's fine.
There you go. Go ahead and start away.
It's fine.
Mark Laws, 54 South First Street, resident Cedar Springs. I remember when we got the money to build the library, I think one of the criteria was, one, you had to build the library. They didn't want us using their money for anything but a library, and they wanted to serve the community. And they loved the fact that we could be as independent as possible, which also allowed us to keep our current librarian, who was fantastic, and we've got a great librarian that followed our past librarian. So I just want to make sure that we always do everything we can to keep the control of our library with our library board and not outside influences or things like that. The other thing, somebody mentioned having trouble finding out how many card members get swiped, and I was trying to actually do that for a month, and the best number I could get was 63,000 swipes of a card. Now, that doesn't mean I couldn't get them to tell me, is that individual different people swipes or just swipes of a card? So I don't know.
Swipe a card, and I checked out 100 books from the library this last year. I do it
But I
online.
mean, I don't know if those numbers that I got from KDL were individual different swipes or somebody that went back 3 times a week, that'd be counted as 3. Anyway, we got about 650,000 people here in Kent County. So about 10%, 63, 650, 10%, or is that 1%? I don't know, my math's getting real bad. Anyway, it's not a large proportion of our population that goes to the library, which is too bad. Especially since our reading, I don't know if you saw the reading, went from, we were 32 and now we're 45 for 4th graders. That's terrible for our state. I feel bad for our state. I think we can do a better job because we got great teachers teaching them, but for some reason they're not doing as well on their scores, but
Pulling our school libraries, which is problematic.
but anyway. So I don't like getting locked into a long-term 10-year millage when only 10% of the people are maybe making that. Maybe we should do memberships to the library, and then you
It
know
would be a
exactly.
vote of the people.
Right, that's what I say. Maybe that'll happen. Maybe we'll get to a point where we're doing memberships, and the people that really want to go, maybe they'll get a cheaper rate. I don't know. Anyway. And Pam, I've known you for a long time.
Yeah.
You were despicable tonight to our guest. You couldn't even not say anything and just let them talk. When it's public comment time, just let them talk. Don't say anything. Just
We
let them
asked to be
talk.
on the agenda. You sent
I
a
understand, but it
proposal.
was public comment time. You're our mayor. We don't want our mayor to look like, oh, she can't even listen to somebody presenting. And one of the guests actually said, please be quiet. This is my time. I'm just like, oh my gosh. I don't think that, I don't know, maybe it's because it's passion, part of your heart, and you're just into it, but
And you're the one who right now is telling me that people should individually pay to go to a library.
I'm just saying, maybe it's something to consider. I mean,
Would you like to individually pay to use the fire department?
I would, no, police and fire are a little bit different.
No, they're not.
I'm not gonna call the
They're not.
library when somebody's breaking into my
They're
house.
not.
I'm gonna call the police. I'm gonna call, the sheriff. And I remember when we went to that thing about having the sheriff be our law enforcement agency, we got lots of pushback, crazy pushback. But now we love our sheriff and they do a great job. So, anyway, just, I don't know. I just thought it was bad, poor form, as they say in Peter Pan, but dang, I just don't like our mayor to act that way. That's all. Thank you.
Anyone else? Going once? Going twice? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, hearing none, we're gonna move on. We don't have any public hearings, correct, Madam Clerk? No. Okay, adoption of the agenda.
Mayor, if I could just make one suggestion perhaps.
Sure.
As you're aware, we received a letter from Mr. Green in Algoma Township prior to the meeting, but it was not received in time to make it onto the agenda. Sometimes we put stuff into the agenda simply for historical reasons. I might suggest that we add that as a communication item,
Sure.
communication item 9.
And everyone on council had received that, right? I know it was like 48 hours, but
So I might suggest heading it as communication number 9. LM.
does that work for you, Madam Clerk?
I've moved to adopt the agenda with that addition.
Support.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. Motion carries. We have an agenda, consent agenda. Council members may request that any or all items be removed from the consent agenda. A motion is then in order to adopt all items not removed from the consent agenda. Requesting the removal of an item from the consent agenda is a prerogative afforded each council member and does not require the support of other council members. Approval of the minute, well, you have it in front of you. I don't need to read it. Do I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
I'll make that motion.
I would second. Oh, sorry.
I'm seeing Rose look like she might have something to pull.
No, I was very happy with it.
Okay, I just,
I could just make one change. Not accepting the consent agenda, it's approving.
approving the consent agenda, sorry.
I amend my second.
Since there is money involved, we will take a roll call. Ms. Atchison,
Yes.
Mr. Gross,
Yes.
Ms. Hamel,
Yes.
Ms. Mixon,
Yes.
Ms. Powell,
Yes.
Ms. Race.
Yes.
And Mayor Conley votes yes. Moving on to action items. We don't have anything tonight. Has that ever happened?
I don't think
Oh,
Right?
so.
Discussion items, an ordinance to amend section 32552 pertaining to non-residential design requirements of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs, first reading.
So this is an ordinance being recommended to you by the Planning Commission. This is something they've worked on for a number of months. Essentially, what we have in our ordinances currently is design requirements for non-residential buildings. However, that does not split the difference between industrial and commercial. Largely written for commercial purposes. So we were a little worried that once we get our business park built, that we'd be imposing commercial requirements on what are otherwise industrial buildings. So the planning commission had foresight. They decided to modify that ordinance to change the requirements that would be imposed against industrial buildings. I think they're good options, and they're recommended to you from the planning commission. This is a first reading.
Okay, any questions on it? Our planning commission does so much heavy lifting and I'm looking at you, Lisa. Because you are just amazing there and we are very grateful. Do you have any specifics you would like us to look at in this, seeing that you are on the planning commission?
Oh, not really. I think it kind of explains itself. I think,
Forward.
yeah, pretty straightforward.
Any questions? Okay, so we have our first reading. Moving on, discussion item B, an ordinance to amend section 32-616 pertaining to parking application and design of chapter 32 zoning of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Cedar Springs. The proposed ordinance would modify the parking application design standards. Because parking, we love to talk about parking.
So parking has been a problem. with every site plan we've done over the last 7 years. It has kind of been the trend in modern planning and zoning to reduce or remove parking requirements. I think largely because I'm sure we're all aware of this. You go to Meijer, you go to Walmart, you go to malls, if that's even a thing anymore. They have 10 billion parking spaces. They're never full. So this is a small town with small lots. We're trying to do our best to get businesses come in and not have, a gigantic parking lot that they're never gonna use. So what this ordinance change essentially does is it gives more power to the planning commission to accept reduced parking requirements if they're convinced that there's sufficient evidence to show that they're not going to need the otherwise minimum parking requirements. It also authorizes them to accept things like bike racks and electric car parking and other things as kind of an indication of reduced parking. So I think it's smart.
Any questions, thoughts? Lisa, anything to add?
Nope, not at all.
I like that this is changing because I was on the planning commission for a couple of things that were a nightmare because of this.
Yes, I should,
thing.
yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since you were on it, but yes, absolutely. And Renee was also on it at one time. So you have any additional?
No.
Okay, we're good?
Jimmy John's needed like 50 parking spaces.
Oh, my goodness.
Then we were like, no.
And we did cut, we're a little off, but on the parking on that, we did cut the ribbon on Jimmy John's this last week. And I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna have to do some training of some of our folks on how that drive-through works. It's gonna be a thing. So, I don't know if we need to like stand out there with some signs, but it's a thing. So any other questions on this? It's a discussion item. Okay, moving on to item C, a discussion regarding the Kent District Library.
Sure, nobody's here for that.
I'm sure no one is here for that.
So if I can just give a
And should I be clumping the Solon letter library? I guess all of this is a piece of it.
so if I could just go over briefly.
Sure.
So again, sometimes you put things into the agenda, not necessarily because we have to speak about them, but for historical purposes,
Right.
background information. So the Algoma letter, the Solon Township letter, they're not really there for discussion purposes or more
Right.
background.
Which is why I wanted to make sure Mr. Green had the opportunity to discuss it at the top.
So obviously the lease agreement that we have with the library board for the city's building. And then the library services agreement that we have with Solon Township where we've created a joint board for the library board. But that's all kind of background information to what we're
Sure.
really going to talk about today. And that is, throughout this whole discussion with Algoma Township, our ongoing relationship with Solon Township. And I believe it was 2003 perhaps that we attempted a Kent District Library.
Yeah, that was, I was gonna say, I think it was even like maybe 2001 or 2002.
So this is long historical thing. As Mr. Green indicated, Kent District Library runs a magnificent program. And when we put a survey into the field for our citizens back in, I believe, 2017, the number one unsolicited comment on that entire survey, which I think we had about 275 responses, was we want to join KDL.
And they had to write it in.
So
It was not even like pick one of these options.
So, certainly something we're interested in. We've, I believe, had Kent District Library out a couple of years ago to discuss at that time. There were some issues at that time, which maybe prevented us from moving forward a little bit on that. But
They've been out twice in the time that I've been on the city council.
once in the
pitched,
7 years
so-
I've been here, so
Thank you.
that's the only time that matters for me.
I see.
So, something that's very interesting though is, Mr. Warner?
You just call me whatever.
Lance will be up here in a minute. And he can give some greater details to it, but part of the reason this is so interesting right now for the city is that because our library has been underfunded, the city went from 0.88 mils last year, the year before, up to 1.22 mils, which is the maximum that we can do right now. And I still think our library is underfunded.
It is.
That being said, the KDL library system currently, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is either 1.25 or 2.8
1.28.
mils.
Can you tell us? One,
And then after, we're gonna go for millage.
right.
So we're at 1.2, whatever it is.
I was trying to find, I saw several different slight, got it. Okay.
So.
It's like 1.2237 six something.
We are committed to going from 1.1 and we are committed to actually going 50 years, for our agreement with 4 municipalities. But we feel really good about it, you know, taxable values are up, we've got really efficient,
The 4 agreements is the MOU?
Yeah.
Okay, I actually have a copy of that. I'm passing it. I think, I don't know if it.
So while we're looking for the MOU, just 2 more seconds and we can bring up Lance to talk about this. all.
Yes.
So if the city residents are currently paying 1.22 mils and the PDL is going to take a vote, I believe August of 24, to go down to 1.1 mils, I think the city has the ability to reduce our taxes while going to a slightly better system. I love our library, but a slightly larger, more encompassing economy of scale
Economies of scale.
type library system, which the residents have been asking for. So there's a ton of stuff going on here. I'd like to limit it a little bit to
Yeah.
discussion of.
And I was just gonna say, the sticking point previously, having spent 8 years on the library board and then doing this on this library, there were 2 pieces that were problematic. The first one was the millage. When we were 0.8 and they were 0.12, we just couldn't bridge that. And then the second piece was our commitment to our librarian. That piece has not changed. We are still very committed to our librarian, and I have been assured that if we are to go to KDL, we get to keep her. That is because I said, that's probably a non-starter. A third piece from when I was on the library board that people told me they were very concerned about, and that is, for example, Mr. Laws told me he's concerned about, is having a library board. So Rockford has a advisory board, and I have spoken to one of the folks there, and they have it within their charter that they structure a board. And we can do that. It's completely within our purview. And they would, because KDL is a service. And that library board would be responsible for the building, the additional programming that's not part of KDL, because the rest of people in KDL don't have a Red Flannel Festival. The other people don't have a mingle with Kris Kringle. So we could continue to do those things, which we're currently paying with general fund dollars because the library can't afford to do it. So those are just as some background of having been deep in this for 20 years, just to put that out there. So that's what makes it more feasible at this point.
So, Madam Mayor, I'm done if you'd like to bring up.
I would love to bring up Mr. Werner.
well, it's good to be here. It's been a long time and, I want to say that, I am, thrilled to be here. I brought, our head of HR, so he heard me say Cammie and the crew are definitely in, we're locked in on that. And then Jennifer German's also here. She is the regional manager of 3 of our branches, actually, Kraus, Spencer, and Nelson Sand Lake. You have the document in front of you. It is a very rough document. I guess it suffices to say that we're happy to negotiate any part of that. Nothing is set in stone. We just want to do what's best for you and what's best for us. And, we're committed to working with you. We think the world of Cammie and her crew, and we think the facility's great. Donna was great too. But I heard a lot of talk about economies of scale, and I just want to give you a heads up about what that looks like. Every dollar that you spend, if you bought a book for $1, we would pay 55 cents for the same book. We get a 45% decrease on every one of our purchases, except for ebooks, because nobody gets a break on ebooks. Any physical materials we buy, we get a 45% off because we buy so many materials. We have the largest ebook collection owned by any public library in the state by far. We're in the top 60 in the world on that. We have Wi-Fi hotspots, we have bikes, we have technology, we're happy to roll in our collection up here. We're happy to give everybody complete access to all of our electronic resources, to bikes, to Wi-Fi hotspots, to iPads, to whatever the community needs and wants. And we're committed to going for 1.1. So the net impact of that, I don't know what you guys will do with your millage on your end, but the net impact should be to decrease the tax burden of people in Cedar Springs. And we pay $2 per square foot for the building maintenance per year. So that would help offset some of your costs.
Another piece that people have been concerned about is maintaining use of our community room.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's actually quite common throughout our system.
we would maintain use of the scheduling and so on, other than, of course, when you, for example, they have an entire package for their summer reading program. When they would need the community room for the summer reading program, they need to have but they would schedule it out.
Yeah.
Kind of thing, but we would maintain the schedule and the calendar for the
Yep.
community.
And the beautiful thing, the way we have our system set up with our materials is things that get checked out stay on the shelf, and more things in that genre end up getting on the shelf. Things that aren't checked out get moved off the shelf and shipped somewhere else or pulled completely. So your collection will end up, we're kind of mirroring the interests of your community. And as far as numbers are concerned, we can get you those numbers. It's in our annual report. So I'll reach out to the supervisor tomorrow with those numbers, and you can have a look at them if you'd like. But I'm happy to answer any questions. Brian's happy to answer any questions.
I'm sure we have lots. I'm gonna start with Rose. I'm gonna go down.
I don't understand how Lakeland and KDL mesh.
Okay. So Lakeland is a library cooperative. The legal underpinnings, the statutory authority for their creations, the State Aid to Public Libraries Act. There are 13 cooperatives in the state. Lakeland serves 42 different libraries and covers 8 counties.
And that's our library at this time.
Cedar Springs is a member of the Lakeland Library Cooperative, as is KDL, as are all of the libraries in this county, and most of the libraries in our neighboring counties as well. There is reciprocal borrowing, but it is limited based on personal preference. For instance, people that aren't KDL card holders can't access our ebooks or electronic
Don't I
materials.
know it?
Yeah, and that's been a bit of a hardship for folks, but we want to maintain the collection for our constituents. We had to talk about equity earlier. I mean, we want to maintain the resource for the constituents that are paying for the resource. But we do allow people to, check out a lot of the physical materials, and we have gotten to where people can check out things as well. I think that we have kept the Wi-Fi hotspots back because there's such a need in the county. We have 1,300. But
1,300?
yeah. And I think that the bikes, I think people can come and check out bikes. But you can't check them out at your branch. You'd have to go down to the Kraus branch or a neighboring branch that has the bikes to check
Where,
them out.
if we become a KDL,
Oh, yeah, there'll be bikes. There'll be all of it.
because our library is
Right
on,
by the trail.
on the White Pine Trail.
There'll be 3 bikes. I guarantee you at least 3 that'll be locked up on the bike rack in front of your library all summer long. They drop them off in April or May, and they pick them up in October. And we have it all worked out. You don't have to worry about the legal ramifications of being liable if somebody decides to do a sweet jump in their driveway with it. That's.
Do you charge late fees on books? Because I
No,
know
we don't charge late fees.
that's been I've had several people talk to me about that, because our library does charge late fees.
Right.
And they would like to not, but they literally need the money to keep the lights on.
During the Great Recession, I was the director of the Capital Area District Library, and we actually put late fees in place so we could remain open and not have massive layoffs. But fortunately, right now, we don't charge late fees. We see it as a social justice issue. The problem with late fees is people invariably end up getting their accounts frozen, and quite often the people that their accounts are frozen because of late fees are the people that need the service the most.
I agree.
And so we decided to get rid of late fees. And we also instituted a summer food program. We served, I want to say something like 6,000 meals last summer. We contacted Feeding America, and, I happen to be a hunter, and I know that if you throw corn in the field, the deer come. And if you throw food in the library in the summertime, the kids come, and we do not that I think of the kids here, but I mean, the kids come and they have full bellies and they're ready to learn. And it's been a really good deal. And then through the great pandemic, and we were all locked down. We actually did a lot of food during that time as well, because food insecurity was rampant. So
Another specific concern of mine was hiring our staff.
mhm. We're happy to hire your staff, or you can keep a hold of your staff, or whatever you guys want. We're happy to work with you on that. 100%.
Now, if you hire them, they get a raise.
Yep.
But
Yep.
they would absolutely be hired.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Unless they
It
didn't want to be
just- I mean,
hired.
these are, do you know what I'm saying? These are things that are,
Come on in here,
My
Brian.
name's Brian Mortimer. I'm the Director of Human Resources at KDL. We take very good care of your staff. They would join the one of the best and brightest employers to work for in West Michigan. We were named that in 2019 because of our culture, how well we take care of our people, how well we train them. And we just take really good care of people at KDL.
Can anybody tell me like what kind of a raise would our staff be looking at?
I would have to see what they're currently earning to know what kind of
Do
rate.
you have any idea, Kami? It's okay if you don't.
You don't have to tell us what you make in front of all these folks.
I was thinking more of our the rest of our staff.
Just, I mean, notice. Cooperatives, so I see postings. From the people that are at the bottom of the pay scale, I would probably no less than, and this is an estimate, $2 an hour.
More.
There's more.
And we've had Shannon, who used to work for us, go to KDL. Yuko, who used to work for us, go to KDL. It's a pretty common turnover for us. It's one of the struggles we have at our library is maintaining our staff.
They always speak very highly of Cedar Springs.
And they're amazing and they come back and help and they will fill in on other, I don't mean that but again, as a person who's trying to help facilitate this, part of my responsibility is to ensure that the people who work for us don't get harmed because of this.
There will be a lot of training involved. We actually we have a pretty rigorous training regime, around a variety of issues. I just saw some announcements come through today. We're ready to re-up all of our first aid and CPR training and Narcan training and how to use the AEDs that we have in our branches.
You pay
Get you an
people, you pay
AED.
people to be trained.
What's that?
You pay them for the time. they're
Yeah,
doing it.
absolutely. Yep, we have a lot of different types of paid training, and so all the Cedar Springs branch staff would have access to that training, which is great. It's marketable skills for them. And also we saved 5 lives by doing the CPR training, and 4 children and 1 adult. So it's amazing. And
Yeah.
actually the first life we saved was, I think, a week after our first training.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I thought, well, that was money well spent, whoosh. Yeah, but
Rose, anything else?
Do we have a contract with with Lakeland?
Yeah.
We do. But if we were to join KDL, how would we have to have some negotiations or?
well, initially, it would be a service contract. And so not much a lot would change in the branch, but your relationship with Lakeland probably wouldn't change drastically. But if you were to join as a participating municipality, it would change your relationship with Lakeland. You would come under the KDL umbrella and be part of KDL then. So the Lakeland Library Cooperative Director, I'm actually chair of the board. We've had a lot of conversations about this and she feels really positive about all of it and is not concerned. You still have full Lakeland services. You can still use all the neighboring libraries. No problem. The other thing that we are is the regional provider for library services for the blind and physically handicapped. And so we have those services available as well.
Excellent.
As a teacher of a library that gets
Yeah.
KDL supports,
Yeah.
that's been my go-to.
So Lakeland is overarching and then there's KDL and then us. So then we would get like grouped into KDL, but still under Lakeland.
Yeah, Lakeland's kind of like we're a library service. That's kind of what we do. We're just the service. Lakeland's also a service that serves member libraries. So
Oh.
there isn't like a rigorous structure. They provide, one of the biggest differences that's different between Cedar Springs and KDL is we have our standalone integrated library system, ILS, our own catalog. It's not part of the Lakeland catalog.
Oh,
But I mean, there are ways we can work around that and deal with that. If you were to join us participating municipality, you would end up being on our catalog as well. But yeah, there's various things, but I don't think it'll be too disruptive. I really don't.
Rose, anything else?
Yep.
Hi, Lisa. Or do you want me to come back to you?
No, I'm ready. We talked about, when we were talking about Algoma, we're having more participants at the library, which could happen with KDL. And we already said that our parking was not good. So how do we branch out for that? I mean,
We actually would probably end up with less participants.
Yeah, You would. Cedar Springs residents would have full access to all the neighboring libraries and all the stuff in those libraries. So there'd be less pressure here. I think what would end up happening at the Cedar Springs branch is that we would end up so you'd probably have a lot more programmatic traffic. Kids coming in for story hours and things of that nature, pet the reindeer and the whole 9 yards.
Mhm.
But I would assume that your foot traffic actually would probably go down a little bit.
And the way that this works is, so Spencer is the KDL library, Howard City is, no, Sand Lake.
Sand Lake,
Sand Lake
Mills, yes.
is, Rockford is.
Yep,
And
Tyrone.
So the people who are, for example, like Miss Sherrardo said, she's at the northern end of Algoma. She's probably gonna come here because she currently goes to Rockford to get those services. But the people who are, for example, closer to Solon or closer to Spencer are gonna go over there because they can't right now because they can't get the services. And the people who are on the edge going over towards, whatever the next one is, are gonna go there because there's so many more libraries. You can go to the one that's closer that you can't currently use because you can't get the services. Like I drive right by Rockford. I'm
Also, I was gonna say where I work too, also, because like I live in
Right.
Grand Rapids, so like there's a bunch of places or do field work or whatever that's next to it, then
Right.
you can also drop off at any other one.
Right, and
So
like
it's
I
not
have
just this one.
Cascade where I work and I drive by Rockford on my way home.
It's kind of like you get the library here, but you also get it everywhere.
Yep, exactly correct.
I have a follow-up question on that thought. Because I'm kind of looking through different things about our neighborhood libraries and the Kraus Library in Rockford. I saw that it had the most foot traffic per square foot.
It does.
So knowing that KDL tracks such things and seeing that we may experience less foot traffic here, does that put us having a library here in jeopardy from underuse?
No, because I think you're gonna have less Cedar Springs foot traffic here and probably have more neighboring
We're
municipalities.
gonna get these people from Algoma. We're gonna get the that are on the northern edge of Algoma.
Humor me for a moment, just for a moment. Let's off into
Yeah.
the land of pretend. If there were a significant drop in foot traffic, is there a situation under which KDL would say this library is not serving its purpose and we should shut this one down?
We have never shut a branch down.
Okay.
That's not in our purview. We have municipal partners. The only time that it was even talked about is we have a library in a school, Kellogg'sville. And the old school administration there was some issues, kids will be kids and there was some vandalism and there was some damage. And I understand they were really frustrated. And so they locked the library pretty much down to where I think it was only open for like 5 hours a week for a while. And you had to be in there with a parent. And so we didn't shut it, but I did go talk with the superintendent and said, hey, look, we're trying to run a library here and the community definitely wants to get in and they can't get in. Can you please open it up? And we worked through it. But we've never shut down a library. It's really not anything that we're interested in doing. What I would rather do and what I'd rather see is if foot traffic starts falling down, I think we need to come up with some really great community-centric programs to drive foot traffic back up. And one of the new things we're going to be doing that I'm really excited about is, if you don't mind, we're actually very interested in getting going on esports. Now, what are esports? Esports essentially are video games, but what you got to understand is that it brings a whole new demographic into the library. It brings in a whole bunch of young men and the football players are going to come in and a wrestling team and all those people. And also there's a lot of careers in technology. It gives us a chance to teach computer safety and computer hygiene. It's great for any sort of EDI work that we're doing. I mean, if you're in Kellogg'sville and you have a coach that is representative of the kids that are part of that team, that's great too. There's scholarships available. A lot of the universities have scholarships available. Rockford's got a really great esports team. We want to be part of all that because we know it's the Mary Poppins School of Librarianship that a spoonful of sugar helps medicine go down. And we're offering something that's fun and cool. And the kids in the library will by golly, maybe they'll find something else they like. Maybe they'll discover Westerns, or maybe they'll discover fishing, or maybe they'll discover something else in the library that they just think's really cool. So we're really fired up about that. And it's going to be a lot of fun. And man, we'd like to have you guys come on that journey with us.
Spencer Township is a KDL library, correct?
What's that?
Spencer Township is a KDL library?
Yeah, yep.
Correct? And they cannot have a ton of foot traffic. They're relatively small.
Yeah, they're pretty small. They're pretty small. I don't think you'll ever get down to Spencer levels of foot traffic.
I'm just saying, you're not closing Spencer.
Yeah, no, we're not closing Spencer. I will say, in the summertime, they have an outdoor movies there that is well attended. Yeah, and I've been fishing with Jeff a few times. He's a good fellow. But anyway, yeah, no, we don't shut branches down. That's not what we do.
Anything else, Lisa?
With your 1.1 mil, and then you're going to a 10-year, is it a contract?
15.
15 year.
15.
Okay, so let's say the community gets where they don't want to be a part of that anymore.
Locked in for
Locked in for
15.
15
But
years.
we don't make that decision. The community votes on it.
That's
Yeah.
right.
And I will
That's
say,
what
if
I'm
the
asking
community-
though.
if the community votes to leave, I'm pretty convinced. I mean, I can't say for sure, but I'm pretty convinced that, you know, at that point, we'd say, okay, we're done, you know, and that'd be the end of that. But the community needs to vote to leave. That's the mechanics of it all. So if you want to leave a district library, it's the first thing that happens is there's a resolution from the governing board of the participating municipality that wants to leave. They send it to the library board. Then they have to put it on the next ballot to leave in front of the voters, the question of leaving the library. Then if that's voted, then, you know, technically we can keep levying the millage till the end of it, but my thought is why bother? You know, I mean, everybody, the voters' will is clear at that point, so we should honor the voters' will and not hold people hostage. And
Has
so,
anyone ever voted to leave KDL?
no. No, you know, there's the issue with the four municipalities, but you know, it's been great. We worked through that. We're working on fundraising and feel really positive about it.
And that was about getting a bigger library.
Yeah, we really, more than anything, we need a bigger programming room in Rockford and a couple more study rooms and, you know, we can build a bigger than that, great, but definitely a bigger programming room. There's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing 250 kids split between two rooms with the door open, trying to listen to the speaker in one room they can't see because there's so many people at the program.
How many square footage is Rockford's library
9,500.
compared to our?
So we would give you $20,000 a year, maintenance, toward maintenance for your building. So that can go toward electricity, snow plowing, whatever you want.
That was one of my questions. but,
Yep.
I think that.
I'll circle back.
It just, I have been a big fan of KDL. My daughter frequently goes up to Sand Lake for Pokemon and
Oh, yeah.
Beyblades, and she built a rocket one summer.
Heck, yeah.
Yes. So when I mentioned at home that we may be discussing this, there was much bouncing and excitement.
Well, that's good to hear. I'm
Yes.
excited about it too.
So it seems to me that we would offer services closer to our residents. We would be able to have a slightly lower cost to our residents, and this would solve our funding issue that we are currently experiencing while better supporting our staff in training and salary. So that's about where I
Do you
am
offer
on this.
health insurance for your staff?
Oh, my goodness, do we ever? Brian,
Again, this is part of my job, is to make sure that people
Sure.
are taken care of.
So we offer health insurance for our full-time staff like many employers do, but one thing we do that's a little different than a lot of employers is we offer health services for our part-time staff as well. And so that's kind of a neat thing. They do it through telemedicine. And we also pair that with a prescription drug program that's free to all of our employees. So that if a part-time employee doesn't have insurance or maybe they do, but they want to save some money, they can use these generic drugs as prescribed over telemedicine. That's a fairly innovative thing. A lot of folks, particularly in library land, are not doing that, but that's something that we're very, very proud of. We also offer excellent retirement savings benefits. We allow people to put a lot of skin in the game and be rewarded with a matching retirement as well.
What do we currently do for health insurance for our staff? That was my understanding. So
That would be huge.
that would be huge, right? Okay, anything else?
No, that's.
Okay. Ashley?
My question is a fairly controversial one. Does KDL have a stance on any type of like book bans or?
We don't ban books. They're protected by the Constitution. We're not banning them. We're not a cancel. We don't practice cancel culture. We stand up for intellectual freedom. We do not ban books. If it was not protected by the Constitution, we would consider banning book. We have moved books. So if there's something that's inappropriate, we look at, look and see what it is. And if it is in fact, not age appropriate, we will move it to an age appropriate place in the library, but we don't ban books.
By the way, you were a rock star. I watched you on television.
Oh, thank
when
you.
were defending the banned books and.
Thank you so much. I actually train, I've trained most of the librarians in Indiana on this issue. I'm an attorney, of course.
I have a pin given to me that says, I read banned books.
Love it. Mine says Defender of the Constitution on my name tag. And this is the pin for courageousness.
There we go. Okay, anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
I've heard everything I needed to. so.
Okay, Mr. Gross?
I've heard a lot. Okay.
Okay, do you have questions?
I have concerns.
Okay.
That would have to be addressed at the time. Everything is presented as coming up as roses. There's some thorns somewhere along with that rose, and it's just a matter of where are they and are we detecting them? You've mentioned Spencer. You've mentioned Sand Lake. I'm sure we're going to draw from both of them. Potentially.
Probably a little bit, yeah.
Potentially, okay. I also see folks in Solon who may end up going to Kent City because they're actually closer to Kent City than they are to Cedar Springs.
Is Kent City part of KDL?
Yep, sure is, sure is.
And that was one
Sure.
that was listed earlier. So we are talking based on the community of Cedar Springs, and I understand that.
Mhm.
Because we are the ones responsible for this community. The way I see it, we are responsible for not because they're here, but we are responsible for Solon also.
As long as we have this
Simply,
contract.
simply they are part of us and they are part of our community as far as library usage. Okay,
Yeah, they use it more than we do.
please, okay?
No, but I'm just affirming what you're saying.
So everything is bright and shiny. I need to see, show me the dollars, show me the proof, and show me how this is going to work.
Sure.
I know for a fact, Sand Lakes branch, as far as the community being supported by Nelson Township, struggles.
Yeah, the Sand Lake branch has struggled with building maintenance in particular.
Yes, and a few other things. So, and part of it is the use of the building for what they want to use it for at times in certain areas.
Yep.
And the fact that the, members of KDL staff up there seem to believe that they have more control of the building than what they may have total in control of.
Yeah, we've
And I
gone,
won't get into details. It's only because I work up there, I hear certain things.
yeah, we've gone back and
Something-
forth.
That's something you'd have to discuss more with Nelson Township, but
We'll talk about it, but I will say out of the 21 branches, that's the only branch that we're having that issue at.
you admit there's an issue.
Yeah, there's been an issue. We've gone
Okay,
back and
so-
forth with them.
So, I don't want that to happen to ours.
Sure.
It is a community library.
Mhm.
I'm not taking away from the fact that our community is Solon Township, Spencer Township, Algoma, all of these people in there and how it's going to affect them. So, will I discuss it and talk about it? Sure.
I have one more thing I want to add too. I mean, we're happy to help out Solon Township too during the contractual period. I mean, that's.
I was
something we
gonna say,
can talk about.
I'm coming to that part of,
Yeah,
we have a contract with Solon.
Yep.
That is, for 0.4, which is, it's a struggle for us. You have said you would, until there's a vote,
yep,
you would bring them along.
Yep.
At that 0.4.
Yeah.
And then when it goes on the ballot, it's up to the citizens.
Mhm.
So Solon would not lose anything coming up to that.
Coming before the millage? No, It gives everybody time to kind of figure it out too.
And if we decide to go with them under a contract prior, to Mr. Gross's point, we could have some opportunity to look for the thorns
Mhm.
before we vote to do it.
That's why we're making everything sound grand and great right now. Let's look for those thorns before we make a decision.
Well,
And I think some decisions are already being made in their minds right now. And I think that's far too in advance of the subject as at hand.
yeah, I'm just saying, as a contract, you have an opportunity. The contract doesn't bind us for 15 years.
No, contracts are easy to get into and out of. District library agreements are not the same. So the nice thing about the contract, and this is why we actually, when we initially talked, why it was recommended, is that it's kind of like a test drive of a car. You know, you take it for a test drive, see what you think. And then if it works and you like the car, buy it. And if you don't.
And
And
again, it wouldn't be us making the call to buy it.
Right, and then we would give people an opportunity
Yeah.
to see this is what it is.
This is what
Now vote, do
KDL
we
is.
keep it or do we go back to what it was?
Right.
And we can, going to council member Gross's comments about thorns. I mean, I think as time goes by, we had a contract. Where the thorns were would become more and more apparent, and we can get those ironed out. I'm confident of it. And and even though things aren't always rosy up north, they're rosy most of the time. We like them just fine, and Robin does a good job up there, and Tom Noreen was on my board for quite a while, and heck of a guy. And
Appointed by the township,
what's that?
was appointed by the township.
Yeah, he is appointed. So the way that works with the board members is that they're regionally appointed. It's a contract area, you would not have a board representative. We're not doing that.
Sure, of course not.
But as a participating municipality, you would be rolled into a region, and we would,
As a contract entity, we would maintain the library board we have.
oh,
for
absolutely,
The time frame.
100%.
Now, the point at which we vote, then we would need to put in a separate library board
Yeah.
for the building. And actually, one of the things, Mr. Womack and I talked about is because we have this, when we were trying to break out what the actual cost is for the library, it gets complicated because the library is situated in a park that is attached to an amphitheater. And how do you, when you're talking about the money that the city spends on the building and grounds for the library, where do you draw the line of where you mow, right? And so, one of the things that we were talking about is if we have a separate library board, one of the things that they could do would be maybe some scheduling of the amphitheater. We could have a piece of it maybe for Parks and Rec, but that would be a whole other, the way that Rockford does it is they have it part of their city charter. And we can do it however we want if we were to go there. But until the people vote, that wouldn't be a piece of what we would do. Does that make sense? And I know that the library board piece was important when I was on the library board, people talking about that.
All I would ask is, and I don't expect you to make a decision to move forward tonight.
Yeah, this is a
big
discussion
deal.
item.
But should you make the decision to move forward, if you could just have Mr. Womack give me a call. We can start working through this stuff, and I can keep the KDL board apprised of, changes to the contract, and Mr. Womack can keep all of you apprised of what's going on with the contract.
And I also just want to be clear because I see our board really struggling with this at our $33 and some change equivalent per person that we're paying with the added $13 per person from Solon, that it's really not enough to keep the library afloat. It's not that they're mismanaging money. It's not that they're charging, exorbitant, not enough late fees, or they're paying their staff too much. It's just not enough money.
So you have about, just for comparison purposes, let's call it between Algoma, Cedar, and Solon, let's call that big group together, just 40,000 people-ish.
We have just shy of 4,000.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Solon is, although we're growing exponentially. We're about,
4,000.
yeah. And then, Algoma, we're told is 13,000.
So if you were to look at that and look at the price of operating in that area, if you kind of boil down KDL numbers, and your numbers would be higher because you don't get to leverage
We don't have the
buying power that we do. I kind of did a quick back of the napkin. I mathed on the back of the napkin.
yes.
I think it came up with, so our budget's 26 million, we serve 445,000 people. And of course, you know, if you were all to come aboard, it'd be more. But it comes down to right around about $2 million.
Probably don't have it broke out by person.
No, we don't have that broken out, but I mean, it kind of boils down to $2 million to provide, you know, decent quality library.
The numbers I've seen when researching say that you need to be at least in the neighborhood of $50 per person overarching. I mean, that's what we talk about it in teaching and per student. Like the idea of you're gonna give a student an education for $3,000 is a year is just not feasible.
Yep.
So you get this sort of like threshold, and a bigger school can do it a little bit cheaper, but at some point there is this like minimum place you gotta hit. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. And I'll also say, I know one of the other things that came up, a comment that was made was this concern over collection development. And what I want you to know is that we make every effort to buy every book that anybody asks us for. I mean, we actually just bought a whole bunch of Kurt Cameron books because we had requests for those. So we just buy all sorts of books and people ask for them, we try to get them.
Oh, one more piece people have asked me about. So we have, I don't know if it's an unusual tradition at our library, but people will donate books. And then they do this really nifty thing where they put a sticker in the front of it that says donated. I just donated one in memory of Mr. Gross's wife, and put her name in the front of the book. And my son has donated them. We've done it for birthdays. We do it for a variety of things. I'm told that is a thing we can still continue to do.
Absolutely. Yep, not even a problem. If you have any sort of local history room, we're happy to maintain that. I mean, whatever. I mean, we're happy to work with you in whatever capacity you're comfortable with.
Other questions? Mr. Manager, do you have any questions?
I don't. You know, as Mr. Gross has indicated, this is a lot of roses. We do know that running a library system as complex as either our library or the KDL library, it's complicated. There's lots of pluses, there's a lot of negatives to running libraries, running cities, all sorts of things. Madam Mayor, you and I have talked quite a bit about this. There's a lot of things that are going to have to be sorted out between now and either having city join KDL or vote on KDL. So this is going to be an ongoing issue.
Yeah.
When I put this on the agenda for today is because I've worked with the board and the mayor and KDL. I just need some indication about whether you want me to proceed forward.
I have a couple questions. Cammie, do you have any questions? I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but is there something that we should have asked that we haven't asked?
Only thing I would say, but maybe we can go further into is Cedar Springs personality in the program. How do we keep that? How do we, can it be kept, and if so, how?
Now, this is my understanding. We had this question or conversation, I think, and having been on the library board, that we have some specific programs that are very important to our community. And that what the library board, the new library board, now this would not be true under a contract. This would be if our citizens vote to go to KDL. We have a new library board. That part of what they would do would be those specific programs.
Yep.
And that we would then at the city fund those with general fund dollars, which is, by the way, what we're doing now. Right? I mean, the chalk art for the red flannel and the mingle with Chris Kringle and the.
Let me have him
One
answer.
caveat though, and that is if you were to join KDL, then the city would not be paying for those programs. We pay for those programs. And
Even if they're specific to. Cedar
yeah,
Springs
and
programs?
Jennifer can talk about that because there's several specific Rockford programs or just Rockford programs.
You pay for them?
We pay for them, yeah.
Because we are we were totally prepared. Like that was one of my,
Want to pay for them.
well, I'm just saying, like, if the issue was, I need $500 for candy for Spooktacular so that we can do that in Cedar Springs and it's not what KDL does, we will make that happen from our general fund dollars because we're doing it now. So that was can you speak to that a little bit? To the programming piece of it, how
Specific
that works?
programs.
Yeah, so KDL has a lot of great programs
Right.
All right, Madam, could you?
Can you go up to the mic? This also means that you're then recorded so we can hear you in YouTube.
Jennifer German. So KDL has several programming work groups that develop good programs that can be added at any of the branches throughout the system. But we also have, you know, different personalities, different flavors to our different branches, our different communities. We don't fit a cookie cutter
You
mold.
mean everybody doesn't have a red flannel festival?
No, can you believe that? But in Rockford, we do have, with the start of summer celebration, we also have our annual Reading Rocks in Rockford Reading Festival, which is just unique to our branch. And KDL does fund that. They fund our featured author. We have other programs that we partner with our local businesses quite often. It's a win-win. They get to promote their business and we get to introduce our residents to guided art painting.
You're at the Rockford branch?
Mhm.
Okay,
Rockford and Nelson Township and Spencer Township.
okay.
And all of the branches have different, you know, things that happen at Halloween, like you were talking about Spooktacular or whatever, trunk or treats, things like that. There's a lot of opportunity to take advantage of those programs that KDL offers, but there's also the ability to add programs that are unique and specific.
So would we just say like, this is the thing we do and this is the stuff that we need to pay for it? And you would.
We put those in
send
our
the
budget
funding?
requests. We know we're gonna need a lot of candy for the start of summer parade. We know that we're gonna need water for authors for the reading festival. We know that we're gonna need candy for the trunk or treat events. The Spencer Township branch does a summer carnival. They get an inflatable bounce house. We put those things in our budget requests so that that is paid for by KDL. We also have awesome friends groups. Do you have a friends group?
We have a friend or two friends. So we need to, I actually, if Joe Marchini and Beth Marchini, if you're listening, we started the Friends here 20 some years ago. So, and I've not been very active with the Friends because I've been a little busy. But
Friends
we
are also a wonderful resource
they are.
to our branches that are fortunate enough to have a friends group as far as helping with the programming, other materials that we use in the library.
Okay. Did that answer your question? Tammy? Okay. Would it be beneficial to ask if we are moving forward that we make that happen so that you can get those questions answered? Because we would want, that would be important for us, that you like, feel like you have that, your arms around that. I mean, you know, that is a big deal. And is Heidi on? And Heidi is one of our library board members and she planned to be here tonight, but then she has a sick kid. And I told her that if she wanted to ask any questions when we got to this portion, that I would call on her. So Heidi, do you have anything?
Not at this time. Thank you, though.
Okay. So any other from,
Gardner's got a hand up.
oh, sure. That's okay. Is Mary Gardner one of your,
I have no idea who that is. I just saw a hand up.
My name is Mary Gardner
Oh, sure.
and I work for the Cedar Springs Public Library.
okay, there we go.
I do
All right, I'd
have,
love to hear from you.
I have one major question. What happens to all of the books and materials in the Cedar Springs Library if we become KDL?
Okay, that's a good question.
They would stay there, and we can either keep them on the shelf and keep circulating them until they get too worn out and we roll them out, or we can box, whatever you want to do. I mean, we're willing to do anything with them. We don't really have any sort of agenda. I mean, there will certainly be KDL items on the shelf as well.
So this is for two pieces. If I'm understanding your question correctly, Ms. Gardner, the first one would be is if we're under contract, what
Right.
happens?
Yeah.
And you inventory them, so we have an inventory of our books, so we would know what they are, right? And then if the citizens voted to join KDL, then they can, this is because I was asking about the sticker piece of it. They would continue to be in our library, but they circulate, of course, throughout,
Yeah.
which is the nature of a library.
Yeah.
Right? Is that my
Absolutely.
understanding?
Yep, and we can entangle our collections as much as you're comfortable with during the contractual period. I mean, whether it's a lot or little, or whatever works best for everyone. We don't really have an agenda with it with respect to that. We want to make sure everybody has access to everything. That's our overall goal. But I mean, we could run the bookmobile up here, twice a week and market and make sure people have access to KDL books during the contract. I mean, whatever we want to do, sky's the limit. There's no restriction on that at all.
I'm guessing we would want Cami and our staff to figure out what that looks like.
Yeah.
If we go that direction. Did you get your question answered, Ms. Gardner?
Yes, I did. Thank you very much.
Okay, anything else? As a
No.
person who works there?
No, I don't think I better ask them any more questions.
Oh,
Why not?
it would be okay. You're allowed to speak during agenda items as the chair
No.
recognizes you.
That's okay. That was the major issue that I was concerned about.
Okay,
Thank you.
sure.
Okay, so during the, if you become KDL, then you could drop your book off at any of the, okay, so that's how things circulate also. What about contractual period? Would that not happen that way?
We can do anything we want with the contract. It just depends on what we all agree to. I mean, we don't have any sort of philosophical issue with that at all. I mean, we want to try to make it as close to what it would look like if you were part of KDL as we can and provide the highest level of service that we can and take care of the employees, as much as we can in the same manner we take care of our own employees and, but everything's negotiable. We're not drawing a line in the sand anywhere.
If they're worried about the book staying separate during the contractual period, if a book comes in,
Yeah.
there's a way for them to
Track it.
Yes.
track it?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're also, but then when we do become KDL, then they're marked as a KDL book.
Well, they actually have so we have what's called a floating collection. So there's books, all the books are marked to a particular branch. They all have a home, but they float between the branches
Okay.
based on usage.
Okay.
And so, but it is possible, like if we wanted to say, just by way of example, say we want to get all the books for Kentwood, all Kentwood's books back into Kentwood, we could. I don't know why we would do that, but we could. I mean,
Okay.
it's not an issue.
All right, gotcha.
Although at some point, let's say we voted to join KDL and then it's 15 years later. And then we decided to leave, it could be problematic. Because some
Yeah,
of those
that would be
books
more of an issue. And if
will be
things,
wore out, some of those books will be lost, some of those books.
if things were looking that way, if it looked like we were getting toward the end, if you were to be a participating municipality, it looked like you were getting toward the end and things weren't going well, and it sounded like everybody was ready to have a break, if you will. I mean, what we could do is just at that point, round up all the Cedar books and handle things, whatever's original to the branch, we make sure you walk away with it. We're not interested in taking the Cedar Spring books.
But at some point, there will be a difficulty to,
As they get worn and replaced.
right,
and-
to try to figure out whose books are whose, the
Yeah.
further we go.
Right.
Yep, I get that. That's not what I was saying.
Just, no, but I'm just saying to clarify, because I've been asked that question too. We don't like put them in a room and lock them away. So, at some point,
Although that has happened at Kellogg'sville, that's exactly what they did.
well, yeah.
They took their high school collection, they boxed it all up, they put it in the storage unit, and that was the end of that. And then it's just a KDL collection in there. But I mean. it doesn't
Okay,
have-
so I'm gonna ask for a straw poll of who would like us to pursue creating a contract to move forward with potentially contracting services from KDL. Rose.
I would support that.
Lisa.
I want to be clear. I'm looking for the facts and everything right now. That's what I'm looking for. And if that's pursuing it, then that's a
Well,
yes.
we would
But
have to have
otherwise-
are we like not interested?
No, I'm interested, but I just want the public to be aware that we're not doing anything right now. We are checking into it.
So
That's
if
where
they
I'm
give
at.
us the contract's going to come out here.
Yeah.
For
Right.
everybody to see.
Right.
It's gonna be in our packet.
Right.
I mean, but if we don't pursue a contract, then there's no contract.
I realize that.
No, but I mean, I'm
just answered
saying,
Your question already.
okay,
I would be interested in a contractual period. I think that gives us a little bit, try it before you buy it.
Yeah.
You know, if there's a little bit of, we run into a sticking point, then we can figure out, okay, this is for us, it isn't for us, or this is a fixable issue.
and I think there may be sticking points as we're trying to write a
sure.
contract.
Sure.
So, but you are in favor of
Yes.
pursuing, looking into a contract.
Yes.
Mr. Groves?
I'm not committed at this time. I think there's
Okay.
too many things to be discussed and determined first.
Okay,
Here's my disclaimer.
Sure.
okay? And I use this at both of the municipalities I work at.
Mm-hmm.
I work for Solon Township. I work for Nelson Township. I live in Cedar Springs. I'm on the Cedar Springs City Council. Whomever I'm speaking for at a given time is who I am working for.
Okay.
I'm talking for the township, but I also have concerns about what happens to those two communities and how they relate to us. I believe we need to reach out to them and find out what their feelings are about our changing also. What we change here in the community is not just changing for us. It's also changing for the surrounding area. We are discussing this as though we are the only entity in our library the way it exists right now. And I understand why, because that's what we're looking at. But we are addressing it from an angle that is going to affect people outside of the community that have been committed to our library.
Mhm.
And I think somewhere, somehow, and we lost our paper for whatever reason, and I understand part was a lot of people weren't reading it, but the thing is, how do we get it out to them to find out exactly what it is?
well, this probably then takes us to, well, I think we have 6-1, Mr. Manager, to at least continue to pursue towards this contract. This probably to, support some of what Mr. Gross's concerns are, might take us to the issue, with the letter we sent to Solon Township regarding funding. And this is not you. This is, you are, I think, done. Everyone done talking to KDL folks?
Mayor, council, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for your time tonight.
This would be, has everybody had a chance to read this letter?
Madam Mayor, just a point of order. Madam Clerk, if you recorded that vote, would you?
Yes, I have 6-1.
Was it 6-1 or was that an
I
abstention?
abstained basically.
Okay, so
It was
it is-
not a negative.
it is 6 with an abstention
The present.
on a straw poll to move forward on a contract.
I just thought that would be important, Mr. Grove.
Okay, and again, this is not approving a contract because we don't actually have a
Right.
contract.
I'm not naturally a negative person. I wanted the facts.
Sure. So are we good on then with KDL? Okay, so moving on to this letter with Solon Township. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at this? Okay, so I can tell you a little bit of the background, having been on the library board and then having been part of the community building development team that brought that along. There was a time when our funding was the same. Had this 0.4 piece. And then we tried to go for a district library, which was between KDL and, or was between Cedar City Springs and Solon, that would move us both up to the 0.88. And the city voted yes, Solon voted no. And the district didn't happen. The city chose to maintain that 0.88 for their millage to fund the library. Solon did not come up in price. When we went to build the library, one of the concerns was that we would not possibly be able to support this library if we didn't bring up their funding. And as you know, Kurt Mabey and the community building development team were very committed to building the library. And part of the reason, and Kurt lives out in Solon Township, part of the reason they were so committed to the city was that the city promised we would support the library. That we would make sure the building was maintained. So they used money, we used money, Solon put some money in. We built this library and it was gifted to the city. on property that was donated within the city. And then the community building development team put in a chunk of money to create this soft landing, because I don't know if you remember when we were in our old library, like we were closed on Tuesdays. I think the day you came up to interview, you were riding on the White Pine Trail and said, I tried to stop in your library, but it wasn't open because we couldn't afford the open hours. And Kurt said, we're going to 40 hours and we're going to support that until it comes up. Now we've had the opportunity now to support it with more millage, which is how we are at 1.22. But Solon has not increased that amount. We are currently, if you look at that letter, we are paying $33 and some change per person for about a third of the people in the library. Half of the people in the library. And Solon is paying $13 per person for the other half of the people who use the library. We are also at the city paying another 4 to 5. I had trouble trying to calculate out the money to the per person to the library in funding for Spooktacular and Red Flannel and mowing. And we just on the DDA approved some snow removal on the sidewalks and putting in sidewalks in the park. We plowed the parking lot through DBW. And I think we're trying to like back of the napkin it, and we're looking at it's probably somewhere around $10,000-ish. Is that okay? I mean, I'm being conservative, but you know, that's so if you take that $10,000 and you divide it by 4,000 people, you're at another couple bucks, right? So probably 3. So that now takes us from 33 to 35. So that's, you know, these are this is what we're looking at, and it's just not sustainable. We can't run a library on that amount of money for this amount of people. We just can't, which is one of my issues that I'm explaining to Mr. Green, who wants to pay $19 a person. We can't do it. We just can't do it. So I don't know, do you have thoughts?
I think we've talked long enough and hard enough on it now. I think we need to digest and
Okay.
consider and think about it.
Any questions about that, or anybody not understand the numbers or not believe the numbers?
How, we have an agreement with Solon Township.
We have a contract
For how long?
in perpetuity. Other than there is a 6-month severance. Either party can sever out for any reason with 6 months notice.
So you sent this letter to them and
We
not,
sent the letter explaining that we need more money.
and you've not gotten a reply?
We have not. And I also delivered the letter to the library board. And to Mr. Alec, who is the chair of the library board. And we had cake. There was some lovely cake. I brought certificates. It was wonderful. We got to say thank you to our fabulous people who had put in each like a decade of service on the library board. And there was some really wonderful chocolate and vanilla cake. And we got to say thank you to them. So there's a picture on our,
Not to
Yes.
belabor a point, but something interesting that Ms. Atchison's kind of brought up. Dealing with the Solon Township issue. One thing that Madam Mayor and I have talked about is we're currently in an agreement with Solon Township. They're paying 4/10 of a mill. We don't want to leave Solon Township high and dry. We certainly don't want to leave the residents of Solon Township high and dry. I think that this is just my personal opinion, not an opinion of the board. I think the best course of action is to bring Solon Township along to the KDL system, if that's where you guys want to go, and give them the opportunity to try it out.
at their point 4.
At 0.4, at the same amount that they're paying now. And then in August 2024, their citizens will have the opportunity to vote on it.
And they could vote to join and join. If we decide to go that direction, it would go on the ballot. They could vote to join or they could not. And we can vote to join or not.
So this has been thought about. And again, certainly we strongly believe in libraries here.
Mhm.
We strongly believe everybody should have access to libraries, including Solon Township residents. And I think, again, that's just my personal opinion, but we thought this through.
One of my first questions in our first Zoom meeting with Lance was, I have this contract with Solon Township. They're only paying 0.4. If we come under you with a contract, can I bring them along? And he said, you can. And I was like, oh.
Madam Mayor, if there's nothing else, I think I've got my direction.
Okay,
Um,
is that helpful? Any questions about the Solon piece of this? Okay, and the severance can be severed on either side. They could also sever with us for any reason. And we can sever with them for any reason. It's a 6-month severance. So,
Suggest is before we get into the next item, since I'm sure everybody's here for this item.
yes.
You might want to take a 2 to 3 minute break, just to allow people to leave and.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful, because the rest of you might not care about the Main Street Mill and Fill work.
If you do, God love you.
If you do, you're welcome back. All right.
I need to get home to my wife.
You should, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are back in session after our brief adjournment. We are back in session at 9:14. And we have, let me get there. I was actually pulling it off my paper one. Because I had the other stuff up on this screen.
Mel and Phil.
Mill and Phil.
Thanks.
So the discussion item, whew, my screen just went away. Okay.
So the discussion item was regarding the 2023 Main Street Mill and Fill work, cost estimate of $722,471.50. And then there is a map. Pull it for you momentarily.
I still don't understand how this doubled.
Because all of the stuff doubled. Concrete, steel.
When was our first, can I ask a question?
Please do.
City manager, when was our first estimate given?
Approximately 4 years ago.
Okay.
And now it's the 722.
Yeah, so I think there's two things going on here.
Mhm,
Significant price increases on all types of materials.
mhm.
And I also think that there's probably a cost estimate engineering issue going on here.
And labor.
No, so, you know, when we submit these for tip funding,
Mhm,
we have to give them an estimate of what we think the costs are gonna be.
mhm.
I think maybe there was miscommunication or just quoting of what the costs were gonna be, because they shouldn't have been this bad. But, you know, it is what it is. I don't know what else to tell you, but the problem is that tip amendments work in such a way that you can do it or you cannot do it.
Mhm,
But we're working 4 years out.
mhm.
So if we were to reject this now, we'd have to go at least 4 more years.
No, thank you.
At least, and I can't guarantee it would be 4 years. To get a different grant from, this is federal STP dollars. So we're kind of stuck in the position of saying, yes, we're gonna pay for this, or no, we're not.
Mhm,
You guys got a pretty detailed email from myself
mhm.
showing ways we could reduce these costs. My staff, we discussed this at length, which resulted in an email. They're all kind of bad options, right? You know, this is just one of those unfortunate things that with the inflation and the pandemic and all sorts of things kind of culminated into this. But this is our Main Street.
Mhm.
What we're judged on.
It is, yes.
And a significant portion of this is gonna be sidewalk reconstruction.
Mhm.
Which are downtown, the sidewalks, I don't know when the streetscaping was done, but it's in bad shape. And
Jerry Hall was still the DPW director for time
Yeah.
frame.
it is not ADA compliant.
Mhm.
So in addition to that, we've also been able to work into this, the curb bump outs.
Mhm.
You guys will recall
Yeah,
that
that part
conversation
was
from a
nice.
couple years ago. The curb bump outs at that time were approximately $40,000 to $60,000 per intersection. We're proposing 3 intersections. So originally, this was gonna be a $120,000.
Add on, yes.
Now, it's only approximately $11,000 because we're doing it now,
Mhm.
right? While we're doing all the other work.
Mhm.
So I don't know what else to tell you. It's
Mhm.
a bad situation.
So here's my question. Can we swing it?
We do have the money. We have
Mhm.
approximately $508,000 in the major street funds. I think the 25 or so is what we're asking for. We have the money. You know, it's just one of those things that it's more expensive than we expected it to be.
Is that gonna take money away from other projects?
Of course it is. Yeah, absolutely. But we only have so many major roads. The other major road, Bill, chime in if you're listening. The only other major road we have in town is Muskegon.
Mhm.
And we've already spoken with the engineers about getting Muskegon Road onto the next TIP program.
Mhm.
Which of course, at that point, we'd have to have matching funds. And
Is Muskegon ours?
I believe.
Yes.
Up to
We've
West.
got Muskegon, we've got Pine Street, and we've got Fifth Street that are major streets. And we've got West Street are major streets. They all need something.
But Bill,
How long ago was Fifth Street? That wasn't that long ago, was it? Maybe I'm
It's
just
been
old.
quite a while. Probably Fifth Street was paved from Cherry to Pine probably in the mid to late nineties. And then
But,
Fifth
it's
Street
been
was
done since then.
repaved in, oh, maybe, I don't know, 2005, 6, I would guess, so.
Sorry, if I could correct myself, what I meant was only Main Street and Muskegon are eligible for the tip funding.
Yeah. Gotcha,
not Main
gotcha,
Street.
yeah.
Just trying to clarify if this is an MDOT thing.
Correct.
So it's around $350,000 more than our original estimate, did you say?
325, I think.
Okay.
And of course, I love Fishbeck. They're great at their work, but they do
Uh-huh.
tend to estimate a little high.
Uh-huh.
So it's possible that when we get the bids,
Mhm.
bids will be lower.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, Rose, because you just happened to stop by one day, we discussed that having a lot of flexibility when this project could occur this year
Mm-hmm.
will also reduce our costs with the proviso that not occurring during Red Flannel Day, right?
Well, it'd be difficult, but we did it last year without the bridge, so.
Bridge is beyond the Red Flannel. Thing. This,
There's
This
actually a
this
road.
is wrestling.
Like there would be a
So-
road. I mean, it would be there, but it wouldn't.
Right.
Carnival rides could really just be, we put the kid in the bucket.
Fling 'em.
My opinion is this, I don't know about anybody else, but my opinion is that we should stick with the original plan because if we don't, we're gonna be sorry. Main Street is the first and foremost optic for folks going through town. And if we cheapen it out on the deal, we're gonna be looking for money again in what, 5, 6 years to do it again.
well, I think the estimate is 8 to 10 if we cheap out.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at
Cut corners. Let's go with that phrase.
10 to 12, 14 if we don't.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, so one of the things that was in this was painting for the lines, the center lines, the parking lines, et cetera.
Curb cuts.
Well, but specifically the paint lines.
Mhm.
You know, we could have gone with the cheapest stuff, which is like a water-based, runs off in the rain,
No.
you know. What we decided to go with was a high-quality heat adhesive tape, which has glass micro beads in it,
Mhm.
so that when you're driving down the road, it actually reflects back at you.
Yes, I've seen that many
The
times.
$30,000, I think that's worth it. And that's
Mhm.
what we have to
I
say,
agree.
too.
I also feel like we just got this bridge, right?
Yes.
With all of the things that go with that as far as the walking, and we are making our downtown prettier. In
Respectable.
addition to
Mhm.
being more functional. And I don't think we wanna like now fail on that. I mean, that's my feeling, and the manager has went to great effort to help fund the DDA,
Mhm.
who is using that money for the beautification of downtown and murals, and we're getting parks, and it would seem,
A step forward back. 2 steps
Yeah,
back, like,
yeah.
we're already rolling the ball here. It's just.
Plus, we're gonna have more traffic.
If you take into account the curb bump outs, what the original cost was with this, it's only a difference of like 2,000, right? Then ish more. 200,000. Yeah. Yep. But 200K is what I was thinking.
200,000.
So it's fine.
So for what it's worth, Mr. LaRose and I had a meeting with the engineers this morning about this. And we're trying to be creative with every dollar that we spend.
Of course.
And one of the things that we came up with was, okay, so north of, I believe it's Oak Street or the bridge, we're only laying down about 1.5 to 2 inches of asphalt. But on the southbound lane at Pine Street, where there's a light, we know lots of traffic stops and sits because they're hitting the lights, right? So we've decided to try to increase that from 1.5 inches to maybe 3, 4, 5 inches deep to lengthen the life of that asphalt specifically in that location. Now, we can't do that for the whole length of the road, but if we add it to that
In
kind of stress
strategic
point,
That's nice.
it only cost a couple, $1,000 more. So we really are trying to be
Of course.
cognizant of it. And in addition to that, I know it's not attractive. It's not always popular with the public, But I've asked our engineers to develop a ongoing maintenance program, which I don't think we've had in this community.
I don't know that we have.
So after 2 to 3 years, you start getting cracks. And the way you prevent cracks is from chip sealing and crack sealing. It doesn't look attractive, but it makes your road last longer. We're all already starting to think ahead on this type of stuff. We want this road to last for a long time. But it's a bitter pill to swallow.
Why don't people like that? Just because it doesn't look good?
It's not, yeah.
It's not gonna get any cheaper.
But no, the reason people don't like the crack fill, it's that, where you see the like
Yeah.
sticky kind of things on the, but it really does make the road last longer.
And of course, Mr. LaRose would tell you that literally the second we put down this fresh new asphalt,
Someone will drive on
someone's
it.
gonna want a new gas line, someone's gonna want new electric lines,
Mm-hmm,
water pipe's gonna burst somewhere.
mm-hmm,
So there will be patching 5 seconds after this is done.
mm-hmm.
It is the way it is, you know?
Mhm. It is. And roads are meant to be used.
And we could keep this money in the bank all day long, but that doesn't get us a new road.
And our weather doesn't help at all. So, I mean, we're not living in a.
Do we have to vote on this?
No.
So I'm simply letting you guys know, if you strongly felt that we shouldn't be doing this,
Okay,
I would do something about it, but.
okay, I see what
just
you're
keeping
saying.
it
Yep.
And again, just the concern, do we have the money? And hooray, we do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
We
that's a
gotta
big,
do it while we can.
yeah.
And that's what that money's supposed to be for, is
Yeah.
to go to our city and our needs.
Right. You mean you're not gonna take that road and the main street and stick it in your pocket? Fold it all up and put it under your pillow at night?
Yeah, I might. I'll just take it home.
So it sounds like generally we're in favor of
We're-
moving forward.
Yeah.
Supportive of not trying to cut and do the cheapest possible, but to do what we need to do, even if it costs more money.
I don't think there's an option.
Mm-mm.
Of course, this will come back before you once we get real bids too.
Sure,
Yeah,
of course.
okay.
So if it
Yeah,
comes back
that's
at
what it
7
comes back.
million,
Yeah, then I
Well-
might have.
we rejected that.
I have to reconsider.
Bill, is there anything,
This is based on suspected quotes from contractors
Right.
sure,
at this time.
Well, I don't know how the engineers do it. I assume there's an 8-ball involved, but
Well, I mean,
I
it's
work
the-
that way.
the thing is, within there's depending on the contractor, their proximity and things of that sort, you may find there could be a break somewhere along the line too. So they're looking for the max, I think.
Spec does overestimate. Right. I appreciate it.
So it could be anything that we're approving, once we approve this, could hopefully be on the downside, but we've usually found that that isn't always the case. So
Not in this town.
once they get into it, they find something else.
Mr. LaRose, do you have anything specifically that, because you're kind of the person on this? Anything we should know, think about, understand?
It's on mute.
No, I don't really have anything to add. I think we're kind of doing what we can do on it.
Okay. I trust you. All right, then we will move along. And I assume this covers the resurfacing map. I feel like we talked about that and the proposed, so moving on to item E, discussion on proposed Morley Park Farmers Market.
Really got nothing on this. So this is simply something that was submitted to me. We discussed it back and forth. There's a number of issues. We're gonna try again, maybe this time to put it in the heart of Cedar Springs. But at this time, I got nothing.
The plan that I read was to put it in the parking lot at Morley Park.
Yep, so that was part of it. They also
Mhm.
wanted to hold it on the same day as youth football game.
Right.
Like I said, there were a number of issues, but
Mhm,
you know, sometimes I get these incomplete plans
mhm,
and I have to work with them to get the complete plans and
mhm,
complete plans that say, oh, that's not gonna work. So,
mhm,
you know, I work with a ton of people every day
mhm.
and this is something I'm trying to bring to fruition.
Right.
Technically, on a new farmer's market,
Mhm.
this board has to approve of it, not me.
Right. I know they play football there on Saturdays, so that was out of the question. but I would like to see a farmer's market here.
I would
Yeah.
really like to see if
Thursdays was not a good day because of Truvent.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just sad. I still went, even when it was Thursday.
But I go to Truvent. So do hundreds and thousands of
Lots
other
and lots
people.
of people do, yeah. So may the force be with him. Yes, is that what I'm hearing?
Mhm.
You can figure out how to help him make it where her, them, this person, the farmer's market person, make this happen. We're supportive. That's what I'm hearing.
Mhm.
Okay. So communications, community events calendar, anything on here? Anybody?
The only thing I'd point out, well, two things I'd point out is the sale of the ambulance and the fire truck. We got slightly more for one than we expected and slightly less for the other one, so kind of.
And even now.
One thing I'm disappointed by is had I known what the fire truck was gonna sell for. I
Would you would have bought it?
He's got room in his driveway. let me tell you.
I don't have room in my driveway, my wife would tell you.
You do.
The county drain easements, that's for that pocket park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I got approved.
We're selling in 1987. No, we already did. Never mind. So I was just gonna say we have another one coming up for sale, but we don't. So any questions on the correspondence? Is the letter to Solon part of the correspondence, or do we have it underneath the discussion?
Had it under discussion on that.
Okay, so we have, but we have the text of, because I feel like that's important that we have that documented, that we have,
Regarding
yeah,
ongoing.
put that contact in, because when we initially sent it, they did not respond. And
On the record.
yeah, so it is on our record and the library board record. Moving on to city manager report. Heavy lifting this week.
Very
month?
busy week, very busy day. I was in meetings pretty much all day. One thing I would point out is I've been kind of subpoenaed to testify at a court case on behalf of the city. And it's going to ruin a scuba diving trip I had planned.
No.
So,
Ruin.
Court's the worst.
I'm hoping to go to Belize and do some scuba diving, but I'll be stuck in district court testifying on behalf of the city.
Go right
Scuba
after that.
diving, court,
Go right after.
same thing. You know, you could maybe do it in your scuba gear.
I mean, I would get a sun lamp to put over him. I'd even hold it. I could
Yeah.
take a day off for that.
Yeah.
Are you going to reschedule your trip then?
I tried to.
Good.
Other than that, I would specifically point out and thank the fire department and city impact. During the blizzard that we had, I was doing a little emergency management ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And as you guys will recall, we've had a couple of significant power outages in the last couple of years regarding snowstorms. So I want to make sure that we had a couple of warming stations set up. Unfortunately, our library building did not come with a generator. We attempted to put one in, but it for various reasons. So the fire department and city impact stepped up, volunteered to have those as warming stations. Thankfully, we didn't need it. But those people do good work in it.
Can we look into adding that going forward in the future?
Library, we did. It's huge cost.
Okay.
They don't come cheap. for
I know
the
they don't, but
system.
I feel like at some point
It was a huge, so we were thinking about using another generator. I'm sure Bill will remember which one, I think from one of our lift stations. So the generator was actually the free part. The wiring, the everything would have been huge, probably, I don't know, $50,000-$75,000. Which for the fact that we just got done building a brand new fire department, that could serve as a warming.
Right.
station. I just, at the time, we didn't feel like it was justified to spend that on the library building.
Makes sense.
at some point though, as we continue to grow, and we're growing astronomically with these new,
Yeah, you need to have more rooms.
we might need to look at that going forward.
Maybe at our new city hall community building.
Sure.
Use that as our-
I've tried.
I'm kidding. I'm poking at Mike.
No, we would love, they're not interested.
So. lots-
We are continuing to try to explore, and again, anybody who wants to be part of that, we're trying to find a space. That's our, I mean, the place for it.
So that's all I got.
Okay, I would just like to add that the manager did some phenomenal work in helping me get meetings with KDL, in this letter with Solon. He did all the math on the funding and what that works out to. So I am grateful for that. And we had a lovely day with cake at the library. We've got our 2 new people coming onto the library board. And there's a nice picture on our Facebook page. And I feel like there was one other thing we did, and I don't know what it is. But
Certificates they
we
got.
did no, but I feel like there was another. Oh, we cut a ribbon.
Good.
We did. We cut a ribbon on Jimmy John's.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I know there was another thing. And the DDA has authorized doing some snow removal around the library. That was per
Excellent.
Rose's
Excellent.
Very nice.
recommendation, and I think that's a good thing. And especially as the new sidewalks come in, because otherwise the librarians were out there shoveling snow. Trying to get it open.
Yeah.
So, you know, I
By
mean,
the way, the city manager was out there snow blowing during the
Yes.
blizzard at the library. So
Oh, you're the best.
not just the.
You're the
You are
best.
no.
Who is that guy? Yeah,
Weirdo.
I thought so.
Super Womack.
That wasn't part of,
We should get him a cape.
wasn't part of your report, should have been.
No, I bought that snow blower so I could do that. I
Mm.
literally had an electric one at my house. I
Mhm.
couldn't throw that in my truck and bring it up here. So
Mhm.
We'll get you cookies.
There we go.
Doing the Lord's work out there.
And thank you to the DPW people who just kept the roads open and kept everything. And yes, thank you for the report that we had the cots and we had it ready to roll. Come loaded for bear, and the bear will seldom appear.
Mr. LaRose have anything to report?
Mr. LaRose.
I do not unless there's any questions.
Think we're good? Nothing from the police department?
I believe he's driving right now.
Okay.
Hmm.
Anything big we need to know? I
No.
feel like no.
I did contact county to make sure that the local board members were invited to the opening of the building, whenever that occurs. We're probably still 6 months out.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think we're there.
And I believe, oh God, who was it? Thomas, our newest night deputy, is the son of our former sergeant, Jason Kelly.
Cool.
Oh. Jason Kelly was fabulous.
He
I
was.
believe he's now Captain Kelly.
I'm sure he was
Probably.
amazing. He's fancy. We'll tell him that he's fancy. Then we'll move on. Fire department, you got anything for us, Marty?
No, I do not. You have in my report, we had a busy year. I'll
Yes.
have summaries and stuff, probably next month or in February.
Okay.
Thank you,
Sounds good.
Marty.
Madam Clerk,
I don't have much. Clerk's office is busy with year-end stuff, wrapping up and prepping for this next coming year. Just as a reminder, next month's meeting falls on the 3rd Thursday, not the 2nd.
oh,
February, the 16th, I think Mike had a conflict.
I'll be
Okay.
for training in the back.
okay,
Mark it on your calendars, reminder.
okay, will do. Will do. Then Finance Director, Darla?
I am good unless you have questions.
I would just like to say that she has also been absolutely wonderful in figuring out the structures for the library millages and
Mhm.
how those work and what can be sent where and how that functions. So that's a huge, I mean, she's just amazing.
Yes, she is.
So we are very grateful for that. Then code enforcement, anything
He's still got the toughest job in the city, I think.
she does? I don't know, do we have anything to report from the folks we chatted with?
No,
Okay.
nothing.
And then building inspections and then boards and commissions, North Kent Community Enrichment. Daddy-daughter dance, I hear is coming up February, right?
Falcon could speak to that.
Okay, I don't, it's not necessary, just I hear it's a It's a thing. My daughter's 26 and my husband's not a dancer. So it's not really a thing for us, but yes, anyway. Then I guess council comments. Ms. Powell.
Oh, I was glad to see that we're getting folks to sign up for the lawful non-conforming approvals. That was quite a episode to go through. I'm glad we are on board to, at the very least, win, lose or draw. We're going to discuss the KDL information and
Yeah.
see what's going on. It reminds me a little bit about when we switched from city police to the Kent County Police. But in that arrangement, we didn't have a vote of the people. It was strictly the board. But it was, local people were just so upset about it, but it ended up being a great advantage to our city. So we do good things, but we did explore that. And I was so glad that that passed by the vote. Anyway, thank you, everybody, and Happy New Year. And on we go.
Okay. Mr. Gross?
Lot to say. Don't know how to say it. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Atchison?
Yeah, I'm glad that I'm looking into new things and still trying to check out items for the city's benefit and for, trying to find out what's the best option. And I guess I have to say, I want to say this, and I don't want you taking any offense, but I was kind of put out tonight by the way you treated Kevin Green.
Okay. Well,
I'm
he's currently
sorry.
meeting at the library board
Well,
meeting.
okay, but once again, we need to let people talk and listen and hear what they have to say. And I'm sorry if you have personal feelings against them, but we're on a board and people come here to tell us something, we need to listen to it. Let them speak, let them say it, and then we'll talk amongst ourselves and figure stuff out. But I was just a little disappointed. Not that I still respect you.
No, I
you know,
understand.
and you don't,
weren't at the library board meeting.
yeah, no, I wasn't, but I'm still,
I understand.
it doesn't really matter. I want this to be a forum where people can come and not be afraid to talk.
I agree. And I absolutely agree.
Yeah.
I also agree, I'm not going to be assaulted.
Yeah, and I
No,
understand
but
that.
that was where we were at
Right,
the library board meeting.
okay,
And then he asked with 48 hours notice to be put on this agenda.
right, which we didn't have to do.
But he said, I'm coming to public comment anyway.
Right, right. And he did have a comment, but at least you did put him on.
I
then.
did.
And that was very, very something you didn't have to do. But I just think that we have to have some patience and we have to let them speak and, and then go on from there. Not that we don't have your back, we have your back. It's just that we've got to be, a little more patient and,
We told him no 3 times.
right, I know. And and he did call me.
He's called everyone.
And I talked to him and I didn't give him any more than I said, this is what I can tell you right now. You have to come up on your number.
And you're welcome to,
So-
like,
Right,
I told Rose, have that when she came to me and I said, take that meeting if you
Right.
want.
right,
Here's all of the information.
right. And right now, it's council comments, so I just want to say my comments. And we don't have to have a debate right now. If you want to talk to me later, we can.
Sure.
But also thanks to the staff again for everything. And Jerry, I thank God for you every meeting. Every single meeting. Because you say what you believe, you bring up a lot of good topics, and I love you to death, man. I mean, you're just great. So, and I'm sorry that,
Not listening, Barb.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry that you're going through some things, but we love you. And if you need anything, let us know.
It's Grace.
I have a headache. There's a lot tonight,
Mhm.
And the weather.
so I just need to stay focused and try to get through this. It's just one more thing we have to go through, and we typically have no problem getting through it all. It's just We just need to be a lot more sharper with decisions and moving forward and just keep moving, just like the road we're gonna put in. Keep moving.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll go with
You.
Whoever you are.
Miss Hamel. Miss Hamel.
That are like,
I've only been here for a year. I started to say Ashley, and then I thought I should say Miss Hamel.
That's fine too. I just want to say that I'm excited about library stuff because either way, like whatever we do, we're doing like a cool, fun thing for the citizens, and that's what I'm most excited about in this position. So I hope that people give their opinions and we get a lot to work with because that's fun as opposed to like roads. No one cares about that, but people care about libraries.
People care about roads when they're not
That's, like,
good.
a fun-
right. of
Yeah,
course.
but it's always like a complaint.
Mhm.
So I think that's fun to do something like that.
Miss Nixon.
Well, you made an entire meeting without having to discuss marijuana.
Yes, this is true.
Something.
Oh, yeah.
Or multi-family housing.
Yeah.
All right, I'm good with that. That's a high note to end on.
Okay, I will just conclude with, cause I think we had the mingle with Chris Kringle since the last one. That went very well. Or was that, yeah, so lots and lots of people. It's the kids at the library, she's saying the I Spy and the having them write a letter back. Santa writes a letter back. Isn't that just phenomenal? So that is really wonderful. And we've cut the ribbon on Jimmy John's and welcomed them to town. We're going to have to make sure that our fellow citizens understand what that drive-through is. You should go up and take a look at it.
Well, it's the bank drive-through.
Well, except it comes around to the out, it curves out more. I don't know.
Eliminated one of the out parking lot exits.
Mhm.
Because we wanted to have stacking distance for the drive-through, which now people are having a hard time understanding that apparently.
Yes, it's
I went
complicated.
through with my husband and I'm like, have no idea what you guys are talking about. Oh, it's weird. It's just.
I think maybe it depends what time.
How about that?
I was just gonna say, talk to your neighbors and your friends and tell them to like pay attention to the overarching piece of
One
that.
way and all that.
Yeah.
I know.
I'm not saying it's bad. I just think there's a learning curve.
Yes.
It's
that's
what we
true.
could do.
Right,
Yeah.
it's what they could do. And I know the planning commission spent a lot of time on it.
Mhm.
So we appreciate that. And the planning commission is spending a lot of time on box signs right now. So we should be understanding that that's gonna be coming. So we should be looking forward to that. I will just close with this last piece about the library. If there are specific things that you want to see in the contract or you were concerned about in the contract, they're very flexible is my understanding. We need to tell them.
Yeah. I agree.
Are we gonna have like Jerry was mentioning, like a subcommittee or something to?
Well, I think the current plan is, because we have a tentative boilerplate, and then we're gonna bring it back to you all. And you're gonna say,
Okay.
yes, this looks good, or no, you need to change it.
Don't think you meant that, but that boilerplate took me almost a week to write. It's not boilerplate.
Oh, I was talking about what Lance sent you.
Okay, that was completely removed and eliminated.
I understand. I'm saying Lance sent you a thing that you then, maybe boilerplate isn't the right word. He had it from somewhere.
We have a draft agreement.
And then Mike spent a very long period of time going through and working it.
Mhm.
And Lance has basically, my understanding is said, whatever it is we need,
That's what he's been.
he will put in the contract.
Mhm.
So if there are things that are important, please say so that we can see about it that aren't addressed, so that we
So,
can.
but my question, I guess, then is in what capacity are we doing that?
Um,
Like if I have something that I want, am I just sending it to you?
That would be my, at least to start with.
Or do you want us to wait until we have the draft confirmed by you two? And then given to us to then be like, no, or yes?
How do you want to do this, Mr. Manager?
Well, it's a little tricky. Because just like well, I don't want to get into it, but.
We have to bring the
good
library
ideas-
board
good
along.
Ideas, please send them to me. I'll do my best to incorporate everything I think is a great idea. And if it's a bad idea, I'll say, maybe it's not the best idea. Which is kind of how I do everything in my office. But, send me all your ideas.
And then at the end, the product comes to us before we vote.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if there's pieces that aren't there, then we have that conversation, right?
So we have a little over a year and a half before we have an election, so we have a lot of time to work this out.
Well, the contract isn't for the election. This would be if we want to join before that.
Cause we
Oh,
want to do.
try
we
it
wanna
out.
Do it before as a trial period, so that by the time we get to the election, people can vote on what we have.
And this is where we can
Versus what we
actually,
had.
the big deal was we could bring Solon along because they will
Okay.
take not only our 1.2, that's a little bit less than what they're paying.
Mhm.
They will take Solon's 0.4 and fold them in.
But we will have, they have the election to reduce their millage in August, is that, or do
August
we?
of 2024.
Yeah, so we're,
And then everybody who's using KDL
Mm-hmm.
or who wants to use KDL will have to vote,
yes,
including Algoma,
Yeah.
including, Solon, including Spencer, including Rockford, including
Mm-hmm.
all of the places that are already KDL will have to vote again to be in KDL.
Good.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, because it's gonna be a different contract.
Right,
gonna be
it's a whole new millage, and then that one will be for 15 years.
Mhm.
And people can vote to be in or not, but that'll be a different, what we're talking about right now is the contract with KDL for services going forward that they bring Solon and us along under a contract.
Right.
We won't be KDL members.
We're discussing a trial plan.
Plan. Try it before we buy it.
beautiful, love it.
So if there's things you want in that contract, get Mike the information so he can fold it in to bring it back to us.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Okay. All right. And with that, that's the end of my comments. We're adjourned.